Everyone, welcome to the Neck Profile. I'm sitting here with Mr. Tom Quayle, who really, though he doesn't need any introduction, I will just tell you, is one of the kind of leading figures in the guitar world at the moment, I think, especially see Tom's progression from where it all started to now. I think I've been following Tom for about 8 years, which is a bit scary. As we were just having a quick chat before the stream opened. It's funny how these things have gone on. But yeah, so Tom, he's doing all kinds of amazing stuff now. He's been doing some stuff with Martin Miller. He's done. I don't think we can count the number of clinics he's done on two hands, but he's got the pedal and all these amazing things in a very interesting and a totally unique individual style, which I think a lot of people really get into. And I think it's one of the things that probably sets him out or sets him apart in the guitar world. But still than that, even I think the sort of gear demo community and edge of things is big on the list of achievements for Tom. So hi Tom, how you doing?
Hello, thank you very much for having me, and you are very kind. I should get you to write the blurb at the beginning of my website. That was quite an intro.
It's improv, man. It's improv.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's always the way forward. Improv is a good skill to have, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks again. And so how's writing going? I know you're working on 2 projects at the moment.
Yeah, there's actually 3. Yeah, although this was kind of, it's not really a secret anymore, but it was at one point. But I'll tell you about the 3. There's my album, which all the writing is done for, bar one acoustic track, which I am, for the past, you probably get what's going on here, but for the past 8 years or 9 years even, I've had this track on the back burner and never been able to quite finish it, and it's still eluding me slightly. But everything else is written. Last September, I actually went away and rented a cottage, Led Zeppelin style, to sit down and really work on all of the tracks. Just took a week out, basically, because I guess you know what it's like. The slightest distraction, usually in the form of being able to click the Facebook bookmark on Google Chrome, is it causes all kinds of issues for creativity and for it's too easy to procrastinate. So I went away and did all the writing. This was September last year, I think, and it's in the process of being recorded. We've got drums and some bass done. Anton Davidians is playing bass. Stefan Rustica from Italy is playing drums. We've got possibly an extremely exciting special guest on drums on one of the tracks. And there's various bits that are being done. It's just a very slow process because I do so much other thing, so many other things. It's kind of tricky to fit it in. So that's one project. And then I've got the album with Martin Miller, which is very exciting. I can't wait for you guys to hear the shred fest that is. It's note intensive, let's put it that way. Note and tempo intensive, I guess.
Fantastic.
There's a lot of stuff being played on there. Yeah, for the price you pay, you get a lot of notes, let's put it that way. And that we're aiming to finish as soon as possible. We're going to try and get it finished before Christmas, but the problem is the original tracks, the rhythm section, were recorded live in the studio in Russia. And we've got an insane Russian rhythm section, again, including Anton Davidians on bass. And Martin and I had the luxury of recording all the guitar parts separately. And it's taken us a while to get everything together, not again because we couldn't be asked, as it were, but because we've got so many other things and it just kind of fell to the back burner a little bit. But we've got a lot of it done. The biggest problem we've got is that we're also writing a fairly epic kind of duo tune, which is the rest of the album is all kind of, as you would expect for that kind of very fusion-esque kind of album. It kind of relates to, or is a tribute to, kind of the Truth in Shredding and Centrifugal Funk records, which all the jazz nerds out there will probably absolutely despise. But the fusion guys, they're like the mecca of fusion albums, really, for the kind of guitar community. And this kind of duo track that we've written or we're writing is extremely composed, so we really need to be together when we actually write it. And we got a fair bit done when Martin was over recently, but we didn't finish it, so we're going to have to arrange to get together again to finish that. But we're going to try and do that ASAP. So that's the second project. And then the third one is an album called the Elba Triangle, So have you heard of that one? Has that come through on social media?
No, apologies for my ignorance.
No, it's not a problem at all. I mean, it was a complete secret for a while. That album is essentially a 3 guitar fusion album. And it's I won't reveal who else is on it at the moment, but it's a very cool project, and we're going to release the first track. Again, I won't say what it is yet because we want to keep some of this stuff back and kind of release it in not in stages, but just do a kind of soft launch for the first track. And it's very, very exciting. The lineup is pretty phenomenal. And I'm on the first track, and I've got to say, I won't rub my own back, but the other guitar player, who I won't reveal just yet, my word, the drummer's ridiculous, the bass player's ridiculous. It's just phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to that being released. So that's the 3 projects. I've been, slowly putting together a portfolio from 0 albums to 3 albums. So hopefully they'll all be released fairly soon. We shall see. So sorry, that was a huge. I just talked and talked and talked there. I apologize.
So Tom Quayle bus albums all come at once.
Yeah, well, basically, I'm going to be the first guy that releases a box set before he's actually released one album.
The best of.
The best of, exactly, yeah.
You could release the 4th album, which is the best of those 3.
Absolutely. Well, I should do that first.
Yeah, the Kickstarter benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do everything the wrong way around. Why not? It's 2015 after all.
It'll be speaking of doing things that I'm sure you're going to appreciate this link, but we were talking about it a bit earlier, and we were saying we were talking about our experiences on social media and the amount of saturation of guitar videos, and whether we sort of click on them or pay attention to them.
Yeah.
And what we started talking about was whether it's worth or the value of marketing if you're not quite ready yet. If you're not quite ready yet to sort of take the plunge and sort of say, hey, here I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it's when I first, I mean, again, we were talking about this before, but when I first started doing this, I realized that the first video I ever put on, I think the internet in general, was in 2006. Now, I could be slightly wrong, but if I recall correctly, Facebook came around in about 2007.
It's 2006.
2006, right?
I was actually at Berkeley when it came out.
Ah, now I remember some of the videos you posted from Berkeley. I remember watching them very jealously, looking at your vocabulary. That's another topic altogether. Yeah. But I think I got a Facebook account in 2007, and that's why I was thinking it came out in 2007. But I had a MySpace account in 2006. All the way back to about 2000. No, yeah, it must have been at 2005, 2006. And I posted some videos up on there from my little, the white plastic MacBooks that you used to be able to get. And it was a terrible video quality with just a webcam, horrible audio. And I posted a video cover of the head for Not Ethiopia, Steps Ahead tune. Great tune. And that got around 2,000 views back then. So that, I didn't really think about it, but it was kind of showing the use of the internet for kind of marketing yourself. But back then, very few people were doing it. I know that around 2006, Rick Graham and a few other guys were kind of getting into the YouTube thing in a small way. And back then, you could get a ton of views with not too many videos and not too much content, because nobody was producing high quality content back then. It was all webcam based usually, or like a camcorder where you'd have to kind of, use a firewire cable to take the video off the actual tape from the camera. So it was quite primitive stuff. And then Facebook came out, and we all started putting videos on YouTube at that time. And we didn't even think about Facebook as a way of marketing, because probably at the time you couldn't even upload videos to it. I think YouTube was the only thing you could upload videos to. And since then, around 2007, 2008, I started posting videos. Do you remember when your first video was?
Rather embarrassingly, probably not. I mean, I think it went straight to MySpace, if I recall right. And it was with a Logitech, the one with the camera and the mic, right on. And it was so terrible.
Oh yeah, they were.
But it was so much better than nothing at the time. Absolutely. Because there was no one was really doing it in the same way. The early days of this whole thing. have progressed ridiculously quickly, and now people have got this sort of DSAs in quality. And it's a total arms race now.
Absolutely, completely. And it's an arms race that is being, that thousands of guitar players are taking part in, and you are bombarded daily with, like I was saying to you before, I'll go on my Facebook news feed, if you like, which used to work in a completely different way. Now you're kind of bombarded by different things every day. I mean, you're probably very similar to me. You've probably maxed out your friends list, and you see all sorts of people coming up that you don't know, and they've all got guitar videos. And the likelihood that I'll click on one of them is so slim. I mean, it's like Martin and I have talked about before, Martin Miller. We don't get enough time to listen to music we want to listen to, let alone sit down and listen to other people's videos of them playing guitar or shredding or whatever, even if the production values are very high. So it's very, very tricky these days to get noticed in the guitar world. The online guitar world, I should say, because it's always been difficult to get noticed generally in the guitar world. It's just the way it works. You've got to do what John Gom did and go out and play hundreds and hundreds of gigs and hope that someone spots you, like Stephen Fry. But again, even that was online. But it's very tricky these days because it's just a sea of content basically, and it's changed hugely over the past 4 or 5 years, where you could guarantee, if you did a video and the production values were reasonable and the playing was okay, that you could get a lot of views on that video and a lot of shares. Whereas now if I share a YouTube video, for instance, on Facebook, it is likely to get around 20 likes in the first day. And I know that's to do with the way that Facebook actually doesn't like to share YouTube videos. But the same thing goes for YouTube. I have videos that have well over 100,000 views. These days, if I upload a video to YouTube, I'm lucky if I get 3,000 or 4,000. And it's just because the world of internet guitar is saturated to such an extent. It's kind of crazy, really.
Well, do you think the way that we as consumers have changed, have we changed the way we sort of dip into these? I think I know from my own practice that I will dip in to something, but I think maybe that's different to other people who are maybe more sort of explorative, that go from a sort of subscriber type situation. They subscribe and then they watch, but I don't even watch half the stuff I subscribe to.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I don't know really. I mean, I find that, let's say if we take something non-guitar related, and I promise, because this is a neck profile, I won't stick on non-guitar related stuff for too long. I subscribe to a few political channels, especially American politics, because I find American politics fascinating and entertaining at the same time. We won't get into politics, obviously, that's not why we're here, but I do consume those videos in a very different way to the way I consume guitar videos, which leads me to the conclusion that there are people out there who consume guitar videos in a much more kind of, let's say, they watch them very frequently, and they watch them all the way through. Because let's say if you're a player who's very much in that kind of learning phase, and you are getting something out of every single video you watch, and you're inspired, and you're learning things from every single video, you probably consume in a very different way to the way I would watch videos on Facebook and YouTube, where I'm just scrolling past videos constantly. Not because I resent them being there, but because I don't really have any desire to watch them. Whereas, say for instance, on another topic, I am massively into the video game Destiny at the moment. I'm addicted completely, and I am watching videos on Destiny. This is so sad. I shouldn't be saying this on here. I am watching these things all the time to find out how to complete certain quests and stuff. So I think the way that you consume, especially as a musician, especially as a working musician, the way you consume music is very different to if you are, say, a hobbyist, or if you are learning, let's say you're at university and you're learning, or at college you're doing some kind of course. I think you consume things in a very different way to the way you do if you're professional. I mean, how do you find it? Do you listen to a lot of guitar music? Do you consume a lot of guitar things online?
Well, I'll just trace it back a little bit, because I think you kind of touched on something really interesting there, which was consume things. And I think nowadays, because of this saturation, people consume things more readily if it profits them.
Interesting. Yeah.
If it's something that they can benefit from. It's a kind of I know you came up with the guitar PG thing, which is or Dan Smith. That was absolutely genius, and but I think it's more, people are looking for more direct ways to get profit from the internet, or to sort of add to their arsenal, as though that's easy. But I think it's slightly unwise, if what wisdom is what's being asked for. Because I think when I've made steps forwards, and we can maybe talk about, I think it's the Pareto principle.
Yeah, the 80-20,
the 80-20 thing. And if I think about what steps forward I actually made, has either come from looking at an actual players and being sort of analytical about what starting from a point of what do I like rather than what's the lesson.
Yeah.
Or whether it's a teach me, learn me thing, I don't know where we can go with that. Sorry, I think compound question there. So now you may not know where to start. Let's start with, what do you think about the whole sort of whether people are going for that profit thing?
Yeah, I think possibly in some cases they are. I mean, I think especially if you see other people having success online in terms of posting videos, and if we stick to the online thing for the minute, in terms of people kind of posting videos online and getting either recognition or work out of things. If I take an example, there's quite a lot of guys who are very technical players who have a lot of videos online who, say for instance, would be snapped up by a company like Jamtrack Central. Now, when you see those kind of things happening, that's happened to myself and it's happened to you as well. We've both got work with Jamtrack Central primarily because of the videos we post online. What can happen is people can think they can. It's now there is a name for this, but I forget what it is. That A always leads to B. A being posting videos, B being working for Jamtrack Central. So the more videos you post, the more likely it is you'll get to work for Jamtrack Central. Now, sometimes that's true, but the problem is that a lot of people who are doing this at the moment and posting these videos, getting logos for themselves, doing the whole marketing thing in a big way because they can see the profit side of it, whether that's a financial profit or a kind of career-based profit, if you like. So moving forwards with your career, they tend to kind of bombard the internet with videos in the hope that one of these things will happen. Now, of course, you can't argue with it because we were talking about this before. You have to be able to market yourself well these days in order to actually get anywhere with your career. But there's a balancing act between doing all of this stuff, working really hard on all the marketing, and also having something worth marketing, i.e., working on your playing. Because one of the big things for myself and for you, when we were doing a lot of our kind of formative even years, that none of this stuff existed. And I think it's become quite a confusing world for young guitar players these days, or guys, not even young guitarists, let's say young in terms of your development. You don't have to be young age-wise. You can still be a guy who's sort of in his 60s, who's kind of getting into guitar and still be young in terms of your development, I guess. And a lot of these guys, I think it's very confusing as to the balance between marketing and practicing and what they should be doing and when they're ready to put themselves out there, so on and so forth. I don't know what the answer is. My inclination is that there's too many people posting videos online who are not necessarily or market themselves in a big way, who are not necessarily ready for that. Obviously, I shan't name names.
No, I mean, everything is... I will never ever, and I know you won't either. We've spoken about this, but it's not a case of discouraging people.
Absolutely
from posting.
Not. Absolutely not.
There is a progression.
Yeah.
That you might want to follow, and that's kind of, make sure that the product is in order. I guess it's like Coca-Cola selling, getting the cans ready. And getting them all ready to receive the liquid, but they don't know whatever they're going to put in it.
Receive the liquid. That's a marvelous statement. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Then please welcome to Wembley Arena. Receive the liquids.
Oh my word. Yeah. So it's this thing of there never comes a point where you can say, right, now, my son, you are ready to release videos on the internet. It's not that kind of a thing. Of course, you can post whatever you like on the internet, but it's a process of, if that becomes the main goal, the goal to market yourself, to have a logo, to become this product that you can sell over your development as a musician, or if you want to use the term artist or whatever, it's not a term I'm massively comfortable with, but that's a different discussion.
Piss artist.
Piss artist I can deal with.
Yeah, I can
Seeing as
deal with
I'm
that.
drinking Saltaire Brewery Cascade Pale Ale at the moment,
Oh, very
I have
nice.
a
Very
Mary
nice.
Jane lined up afterwards. But yeah, it's if that becomes the main focus of your playing, and you're always thinking about, okay, today I have to post a video. How many views am I going to get? How famous am I exactly? As opposed to how good a player am I? What do I have to offer? Am I thinking about music rather than marketing? So what I'm saying is the ratio of music to marketing should be more in favor of the music. And I think it can be lost these days where, you know, it's so easy to stick videos up on YouTube and on Facebook and then band them around to everybody, you know, forcing them on people. We've talked about this on, you know, or Dan and I have talked about this, and various other people I know have talked about this a lot. You know, this whole thing of forcing your musical content on people via instant messages or emails or, you know, whatever system you use to force it on people. I think we've kind of lost a little bit. We've gained a lot with the internet, a huge amount, and I've gained an enormous amount. I mean, I owe almost my entire career to the internet, so in no way am I begrudging the internet. But I think we've lost a little bit of, as my friend Dave Bronze would say, the kind of human, you know, person-to-person contact of, you know, you would sit down and you would share things with somebody in person, or you would show them something in person. And now it's like there's a lot of record a video and then let's see how many people I can get to look at this video. Where can I post it? Where can, you know, how famous can I get from this video? I just, you know, I feel like there's a little thing that has been lost basically, as well as a huge amount that's been gained. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Well, the other thing is still there. It's just that there's more of the other thing.
I guess, yeah, you could definitely look at it that way. I mean, the internet offers so much that really to be negative about it is really stupid. But I think that, you know, people, I think that certain members of the community need to slow down a little bit and kind of, you know, work on their playing a bit more and not worry so much about the marketing, because I think they'd be richer musicians for it rather than worrying too much about the marketing. But again, in no way am I trying to discourage anybody or suggest that people should stop doing things. I just think that the music should be the center of their focus rather than kind of marketing themselves, as it were. So,
and
yes.
So you're at the moment with the you know, with the albums coming out and stuff, and I know even sort of now, you're a very diligent practicer, or at least you come across that way. I don't know. I don't know if you really are,
That's the bubble.
Yeah, you've given this impression of a very sort of diligent and considered practicer. What are you working on at the moment? What do you think you could improve in your own playing?
So my practice these days is actually very, very simple, and it's part of the thing that I often teach. I find that practice at this point for me becomes far more cerebral than it does technical. Not in any way because I feel my technique is developed to the point where it needs to be, but part of my kind of practice process is very much visualizing over chord changes. And you can never not get better at that, if you see what I mean. A double negative, but you can always get better at that. And so I spend a huge amount of time sat with the guitar playing completely rubato, allowing my brain to get faster at visualizing and thinking musical ideas through chord changes. Sorry, the Cascade Pale Ale is doing its business. So yeah, I spend a huge amount of time not playing to backing tracks or a metronome anymore or any of those kind of things, although I do still do that, but a huge amount of time sat thinking through chord changes in my head and threading ideas very, very slowly through them and allowing my brain, as opposed to my fingers, to get quicker at visualizing and also my ears at hearing things, which I find if I say I was going to practice a tune like, because I play it quite a lot and I've stuck some videos online, Spain, for instance, which you'll be very familiar with. I very rarely will stick a backing track on and just play to it or you know, record the changes in time and just play over it, because I find that if I do that, I end up playing all the same things I already play. You know, the same vocabulary, the same rhythmic ideas. So what I'll do is twofold. I'll usually sit and play very rubato through the changes, trying to find even stupid things like new fingerings for things, or looking for phrases that I would never have come up with if I was playing much faster. They're still improvised, by the way, but they're just improvised so slowly that I'm in control of every single note choice, which when you're improvising up to speed, you never are. You're in control of a certain percentage, but it's probably 20%. And then the other 80% is the Pareto thing again. So I'm trying to practice being more in control of the notes that I'm note choices, and also I get off a bit more now on, rather than actually making the changes, because that's not necessarily such an issue anymore, is the threading interesting melodic and rhythmic ideas through the changes. So that's a lot of the practice. And then the other practice I'll do is I'll remove any harmonic structure at all, possibly. When I say that, I mean changes based. So I'll pick either a particular harmonic area, just one area, or I will pick just a non-harmonic area. So I'll just play whatever, and I will work solely on my rhythmic material. And that I will do with drum grooves using a program called Stylus RMX, because it's got such a huge array of drum grooves, and they're usually either break beats, drum and bass beats, or swing beats that I'll use, just because they groove so hard. And it's kind of more, I'm getting more and more into the kind of Wayne Krantz approach of thinking very much rhythmically and not worrying so much harmonically what's going on until the changes appear. So my rhythmic practice is just completely harmonically free, basically. So those are the two things that I practice mostly these days, essentially. And it's a lot of the way I teach now as well, allowing your brain to catch up with your fingers. So practicing your cerebral sort of ability in the same way you practice your technical ability, going slowly, essentially, to allow your brain to get faster and faster at visualizing and thinking of ideas and then executing them. So yes, that's the majority of what I do.
And so just looking back then, what sort of is it been a sort of fairly smooth and expected progression, or have there been any sort of quantum leaps forward in your playing?
So yeah, I would say the past 2 years have been more productive than the previous 4 or 5, I would say. There's a few shifts I can think of in my playing. If you want me to sort of go through a few of those, sort of 3 or 4 that I can think of. So what I found when I first started playing guitar, and I know we'll sort of talk a little bit about, the early experiences with guitar and stuff, but I found that fairly quickly, like I have never thought that I was, if you sort of use the term, which I don't know how much I believe in it, but sort of talented or gifted on an instrument at all. I've never found, say for instance, oral skills, as in AURAL, just clarify that.
Thank you.
Never found, hearing melodies and playing them straight back, or transcription, or hearing a chord progression and playing it straight back. I mean, Martin's ridiculous at that stuff, and it's never been a real, I can do it, but it's not natural for me. However, technique I never really had, or certain techniques I never really had a major issue with. So picking has always been a big issue for me, but generally just the feel of the guitar and playing the instrument. I think within the first year to year and a half of playing, I was sort of playing Steve Vai and Satch tunes, and a little bit later, maybe 2 years after starting, I was playing Dream Theater stuff, all pre-prepared kind of scripted stuff. And that initial phase was fairly quick. And then I went, I guess I started when I was 15. So when I was 8, I think I was 18 or maybe 19. So I've been playing 4 years. I went and did a jazz degree. And I found that various parts of my playing sucked hideously. And I found things a big struggle for the first 2 years. But a big shift in my playing that I remember massively was, and the reason for this is kind of weird, I moved in with a load of Norwegian guys, because Leeds College of Music, which is where I did my jazz degree, has a fairly big Scandinavian student population. I guess they had a few of the lecturers go over there at some point, or somebody go over there and kind of advertise the college. And ever since, there's been this steady influx of, Scandinavian students. So I lived with these Norwegian guys, and what I noticed straight away is that their time feel was impeccable compared to mine. It was the first time I remember ever listening to guitar players sat in front of me that I could play with and thinking, man, the time feel of these guys is it was the first time I'd ever thought really about time feel in that way. Even though I'd done a year of jazz college, I'd never really seen it in front of me with guys in the same room that I was playing with. And it was a massive eye-opener. And at about the same time, I got massively into Pat Metheny, or Matt Metheny, as we like to call him. And his time feel, as you're well aware, is also impeccable. So I worked hugely on my mostly single line time feel, as opposed to kind of comping time feel, which I'm still not happy with at all. I find that far harder than playing lines. And so this is well before kind of looking at guys like Wayne Krantz and stuff. But that was, you know, getting that kind of swing, that kind of, I don't really know how to describe it. It's kind of like a smooth, almost, it's less precise than Wayne Krantz, which is kind of like a straight on the grid kind of feel. Pat Metheny is kind of this looser, I guess, behind the beat kind of eighth notes swing kind of feel that's just very addictive when you listen to it. So I worked on that for a long time, and that improved my playing a lot. And I have some very funny recordings where you hear a guy who can't play changes at all, but his time feel is actually quite close to that kind of Pat Metheny kind of thing. And it just sounds bizarre because I'm not hitting any of the changes, but the time feel is pretty good. So that was one sort of moment that really kind of, I think, pushed me forwards. And then coming out of jazz college, actually in the second year, the summer of the second year of my jazz college, and I hope this is interesting, the second year of my jazz college, there was a guy called Tam de Villiers, who is a ridiculous guitar player. He's born in South Africa, now lives in Paris. And he was in Leeds at the time studying, and he was absolutely insane. Basically, was going on a big Ben Monder trip at the time and checking out and composing a load of Ben Monder stuff. Very similar to, do you know the stuff with Theo Bleckman that Ben Monder did?
No, I don't.
Right. No. So Ben Monder, for anyone who doesn't know, if you check him out, he does this very kind of crazy, harmonically it's absolutely nuts, and he has a singer who seems to be able to sing any line that you write for him, no matter how intervallically mental and outside of any kind of harmonic formula it actually is. He seems to be able to sing it. And Tam was writing stuff like this, and I sat down with Tam for the summer of that must have been the year 2001, maybe, I think, the summer of 2001, and sat down, and he basically showed me a load of harmony that for some reason we just hadn't gone through at college, or at least he showed me it on the guitar. And so I started to understand the difference between major and minor 2-5-1 progressions, diminished harmony, diminished scale harmony, I should say, melodic minor harmony. And that gave me this absolute obsession for harmony. And I'm still a complete and utter harmony nut, totally obsessed with it. And, guys like Jacob Collier, who I guess you've heard Jacob Collier?
Yep.
I mean, I have no idea what that guy's doing. And that is totally firing my, my kind of harmonic brain is just going absolutely mental, desperate to know what he's doing there. But yeah, that was a very big formulative kind of summer for me, understanding how that harmony works, and then going back and looking at standards and being able to actually understand what was going on and start to develop my ability to play over those changes. And then I sat for the next year and did so much work on fretboard knowledge. It was ridiculous. I was totally obsessed with it. So that was a very formative time. And then the final one I'll really talk about was I used to be, for the guys that have known me since college years, I used to be very much a Pat Metheny style technique guy. I would pick a lot and just do the odd pull off and hammer on, because that's how I developed that time feel. And I had a student from Chicago who I was teaching, a guy called Eric, who was a really good acoustic player, actually. And he brought a Greg Howe record. It was Extraction into one of the lessons. And I was familiar with Greg Howe from back in about 95, 96, learning a thing called Last Minute, which was this song that he wrote for Guitar Techniques magazine, which was insane. So I'd kind of learned bits of that and was familiar with him. And he stuck Extraction on and my brain exploded. Which seems strange because, I was a proper, excuse the term, jazz Nazi at the time, and had been indoctrinated, if you like, into the world of jazz Nazism, and I hated everything that wasn't jazz. And then I heard Greg Howe, and a chord struck inside of me, if you'll excuse the pun, and nice. I got massively back into legato stuff, hugely into legato. And around that time, that must have been about 2005, 2004. I totally changed the way I played, and just got back into the legato thing. I remember asking, at the time I had an Ibanez, this was 2006, I had an Ibanez AS 103, no, an 80 something, like one of the 80s semi-hollow kind of John Scofield style guitars. And I got rid of it and got an Ibanez S Sabre, the Sabre series. And overnight, pretty much, I just decided to become a fusion player, which is really stupid. And just got totally back into that stuff and started using overdrive again, quite a lot of overdrive. Really got back into players like Brett Garsed, Alan Holdsworth. Alan Hines became a big influence for me. And really worked hard on my legato playing. So between about 2005 and now is kind of, so about 10 years of legato playing. And it seems to have been a good move because, I'm no longer sort of trying to be a Pat Metheny clone, and now I'm trying to be an Alan Hines clone or somebody else. A Tim Miller clone, I would say, is the new thing for me.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I know you might. Yeah, I know you might be going for that, but what we receive is something very Quayle-ish. That's always the way that we always kind of reach for some sort of imitation. And by doing so, something else comes out. And I think what a lot of people try to do, and they're trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And what you're describing there in such an incredible fashion is actually involved as well. When you were putting those numbers down, and people go, okay, so in 2001 he was interested in Pat Metheny, but then there was a point there where it kind of branched out,
yeah,
and then something started to happen. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And I think what people do now, because of a sort of a weird delayed gratification that maybe isn't learned in an internet age for the sort of millennials, maybe, even for me, I kind of feel it now. But the kind of instant, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be this, and people kind of expect maybe results in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Whereas these things actually do take years, and if you practice for how you want to sound next year, those changes will embed themselves in a really way. It's the kind of there's a way that we learn things now. Oh, hey, learn this legato lick.
Yeah. And
we kind of expect that to sort of morph into an entire vocabulary. But these things take a long time. And I think what's so valuable about what you just said was just that time frame. And just to kind of spelling it out like that really gives people a really clear indication of maybe a way forward even. Maybe I should be thinking about what I'm doing, speaking actually as myself now. Maybe I should be thinking about what I'm going to do in 2017, or the kind of player I want to be then, and that should inform my practice now, rather than I hope I can learn this legato lick.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say is that there's never been a point in my musical life, if you like, which is over half of my life now, where there probably has been points, especially when I was at college, where I had to do this. But for my own stuff, where I'm practicing because I feel the urge to play or practice guitar, I've never had a point where I've thought, right, what do I have to practice now? It's always been picking the guitar up and just practicing the things that kind of, interested is not even the right word, I was addicted to at the time, whatever it was. So if I was working on a particular thing, and I can't really put my finger on any at the moment, but if I was I never sat down and worked on legato as an exercise, if you like, but if I was working on a particular thing like a harmonic thing, or playing through a series of chord changes, it was because at the time that's what my brain absolutely insisted that I do. Now some people work better by having a very disciplined approach, where they'll actually write down, like I have a student and a good friend of mine, Daniel Sarif, who sits down and writes every minute of his practice schedule out, and it works really well for him. He's an amazing player. It doesn't work for me. I just do the things that obsess me at the time. And I think because they obsess you, and again, I'm not sure how you work, so you can tell me if this works for you or not. And it'll be interesting to hear a sort of different perspective. But I find that I do or achieve the most progress on the instrument when I am totally addicted to the thing that I'm actually practicing, and not feeling guilty about not practicing other things, not doing the things. Say, for instance, if I'm totally addicted to a particular harmonic idea at the time, or a particular rhythmic thing, the fact that I'm not practicing I don't know, some other harmonic idea, or the fact that I'm not practicing my comping is not, or I'm not practicing my sight reading, is not massively making me guilty, because I'm moving forward as a musician, because I'm practicing in general, and because I'm obsessed with the idea that I'm practicing at the time. I know I'm making progress on it. I don't know if that's, do you practice in a different way to that?
I think what you're, well, I'll maybe just quickly talk about what you just said. I think you're talking about, you kind of, it's a very good sort of intuition for what's next.
Right.
I think that's maybe to your credit, that you become addicted to that, but the fringe benefit is a very direct one.
Yeah.
And maybe you've been lucky in a way, because you've been you've had sort of been introduced to things at that time, and you've had people guide you in an interesting way, and it's a very fortunate thing, and not everyone gets that. And it's
very true.
It's something I'm very grateful for, all the guidance, my intuition with how and what I practice. I've gone maybe a slightly different way, because my practice has been informed by things I need to do for what's coming up.
Yes.
In my gig life.
Yeah.
And that there have been fringe benefits learned from that. And those benefits are, they're really difficult to talk about, and they're quite ephemeral. I can't pin them down, but there are other skills going on there, and the thing is, my busy, I'm indebted to a local band when I was growing up called EK1, whom I played with for a couple of years. Nothing exposes your playing and sets your and working out what you need to work on, because it's there and it's immediate, and there's no more excuses now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all the punters can hear is, oh, that wasn't right. Oh, that was a bit up. Whereas in your room, you might give yourself some excuses. So I think it's kind of my thing was a lot of maybe consolidation. It would be something that I would say that happened in my musical life. But the other thing that happened with me was away from the guitar, which was kind of working on the compositional thing, which got me more interested in, got me interested in a kind of an intellectual process, music, and again, it's hard to pin down. I think I'd need to be actually sort of grilled on it to extract what I'm trying to come up with. But with guitar's been a kind of perfunctory thing for me. I've kind of needed, when I write for other instruments, it's more of a playful thing, and more of a kind of, it's a free pass. I don't listen to it, but I can express something that maybe I just want to hear, and that doesn't exist, and I want to exist. Whereas with guitar, I feel like I'm talking to very much to a tradition.
Yeah.
And I'm talking. Guitar for me is a kind of dialoguists. I think that's the way I look at it. And when it comes, I think it's a lot about. At least that's my approach. Everyone's different with this, but I've kind of gone down a kind of, make sure you've got your cliches down route.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, because guitar players can be very different beasts entirely. Because, I mean, for instance, I never ever do, and I don't know whether you do, but I know you've just done the show up in Blackpool that you did. Those kind of gigs I've not done for not that long. How long has it been since I've done those? I guess the last kind of gig I did West Side Story years and years and years ago. I never, yeah. And also written out very oddly for guitar as well, with some very crazy stretches in. But the last reading gig I did was a long, long time ago. The last function gig I did was a long, long time ago. I tune in fourths. I'll see we've got a few questions about that, so we can get into that later. But I tune in fourths. I've removed myself, not consciously, but removed myself from the pool of guitar players that can do a lot of those kind of jobs. Now, that's not an intentional thing. That's just a byproduct of being tuned in fourths. But I kind of consider myself, for me, quite lucky in a way in terms of the way my brain works and the way I've been allowed to practice, because I, make a living from only doing the thing that I do. I don't do any other kind of gigs or jobs that kind of require me to learn, say, for instance, how to be a great funk guitarist or how to be a great country guitarist. And you, for instance, will be a far more versatile and rounded musician and guitar player than I am. If you put me on a pop gig, I don't think it would be I don't think I'd do a terrible job, but I don't think it would be very pretty. And, those kind of skills I understand how to do those kind of gigs, but it's been such a long time and I don't practice that kind of stuff that I just, that skill set is completely missing from my playing. So it's interesting how different guitar players, the way you're set up to practice can be very much informed by the jobs you're doing and the kind of work that you have on your plate, really. I mean, Dan, for instance, Dan Smith at the moment, his Western swing chops have gone through the roof, but I think if you're given him the option, I don't think it's what he'd have practiced. Now, obviously, there are some huge benefits to that, and Dan's playing has just developed scarily so from doing that. But it's interesting that it's not necessarily always the choice he would have made, to go down that practice route. And I kind of consider that at least over the past 6 or 7 years, I've been quite lucky for myself, because certain guitar players just would hate this, but I've only had to practice the things that I want to practice, which is kind of nice, really. An interesting sort of way to develop.
I think you're a guitar researcher.
No, I remember you saying this to me before. Yeah.
I think that's the way I kind of. You're obviously an amazing practitioner, and I would say artist, but there's a definite research element to what you're doing. That's
really interesting. So how would you define that then? Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Definition. I would say that the researcher element to it, and it's not a it's a loose category where you can be within a Venn diagram of other things,
right?
It's not in any way meant as a sort of pejorative. Please don't think I'm saying it.
No, it's fine.
Like that. But I think that your interest is in the thing itself, and the way you explore it is in the thing. Does that make any sense?
Just say that one more time, because the audio cut out a little bit, as I think you said the defining part of that.
Okay, so what you're looking at things in kind of in abstract,
right?
And trying to guitar pathways previously unexplored.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, for me, the addiction comes from now, how can I put this? Because mapping out is the wrong word.
Addiction comes from rewards, doesn't it? That's the thing. What's the reward?
So the reward. I'm trying to figure out what the reward is for me. So the reward is really actually research works really well, because the reward for me is understanding the guitar and music better. But I only use that, if we call it research, in my ability to play the instrument, also with others, of course, but I don't fit that knowledge necessarily into a framework that's not my own, if that makes sense. Very rarely do I have to fit it into a framework that's not my own. So I never go and play with, say, a funk band or with a blues band or with whatever. It's almost like a slightly more selfish pursuit than you would normally have as a musician. But for some reason, that's more rewarding for me personally. I don't know why.
But I will wager that from your output, like your research output, that there are plenty of playing Tom Quayle licks in their function gigs. And I'll put myself in that.
Now that's a very interesting thing. So I'm kind of figuring stuff out, and then it gradually somehow or other works its way onto the function gigs. That's an interesting point of view. I like that.
Well, you're blazing a trail, and the rest of us are lapping up the rewards. Really, I think.
Well, that's very kind. I mean, the funny thing is that I don't know how you feel about this, because like I would say. And again, this is a slightly different topic, but related. I can recognize your playing very, very quickly. And I wonder if you ever, this is kind of a cliched question these days, but if you ever set out to do that, if you thought about the process of how do I differentiate myself, because you definitely have, like you said, there's certain things that are, what's the word? They're kind of, they're supposed to be there in guitar players playing, and you do them to the level is super high. You excel at those things. And I certainly feel like I have quite a few of those things missing from my playing, but you also have a unique, both sound and tone. Now, I don't know how aware you are of it, but I would put money on being able to identify and this is not me kind of stroking your ego. This is just me stating a fact as I see it. I can identify your playing pretty quickly, both tonally and nuance wise, note choice wise in a lot of cases. Like if I listen to your Jam Track Central stuff, I know it's you immediately without seeing the video. Now, did you make a conscious decision to do that? Are there things that you sat and practiced? Or do you think, like for me, for instance, I think it's more a case of the influences that you've got and the way that you practice, and the choice of gear that you make, the things that you are into in terms of how gear feels when you play through it, the choice of tone that you have, all come together to form a thing, whether you like it or not.
That's it. It's kind of accidental, and to seek it out is in many ways a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
if try
really,
to catch your own shadow, you'll just never do it, I think.
Yeah, or who said it? I think, was it Stravinsky or no, Picasso? No, it was Stravinsky. I think it was Stravinsky. He said like composing is like trying to draw the face in the fire.
Okay, yeah, right.
I love that phrase. It's you see it and it's there and it's clear and then it's gone.
Well, so to coin a modern phrase, you'll get burned. If you try and do
that. Yeah, absolutely. But I think we're all. I mean, I don't know if I'm goal orientated as an individual, but the process is the kind of more important thing, and the process is actually your situation, your opportunities, what's kind of landed on your doorstep. Really, I'm a exceptionally musical family, and people being sort of interested in. Yngwie Malmsteen and Joe Satriani from an early age, but before I was playing guitar, I liked that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's gonna have a sort of knock on, and then the other thing as well, I would say is what that one thing that doesn't get talked about so much, that has led at least to my thing, and maybe you could talk about this, is that my awareness of almost everything that's out there that's good is pretty important to me, in terms, because I know that you're there. I know that Martin's there. I know that Alan Holdsworth's over here. I know that John McLaughlin is over here. I know kind of what everyone is doing, and this just might be subconscious. It's not a conscious thing, but maybe subconsciously I'm thinking, well, something already exists like that. So why would I go and do that exists? But and then you can only be honestly motivated by what interests you, and you touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
But I think, why try to sort of seek out a path for the wrong reason? I think you can only get that sort of obsession, addiction, whatever, from it just happens and you can't control it, and that's what's going to lead you to whatever your output is.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody with any kind of basic musical intuition who's played an instrument for long enough that they get really into it and they start to hear, especially if you get into something where the artistic nature of it, so improvisation or composition, becomes very important to you, you have an intuition as to whether you are, let's say, copying somebody too directly, or you should have an intuition of it. Like we've all done it where we've sat down and you've probably noticed that actually I'm doing too much of this and it's making me sound like a copycat. You don't necessarily think of it in those terms. There's no point where that flag goes up and you label yourself a copycat. It's more intuitive and subconscious. And I think your subconscious and your intuition steer you in certain directions towards and away from certain things. Because of that fact, first of all, that your musical intuition is just kind of leading you away from being too much like a copycat and taking too much from one person. And also the fact that you're discovering new things all the time. So inevitably, you're a result of everything that you listen to, and you're always being steered in different directions. I say the same thing, even kind of less. What's the word? So less. That's a sort of fairly intangible thing. You can't sort of say I am a result of this, and this. It's a more intangible thing. The end result that you get as a musician. But a tangible thing, for instance, like fretboard visualization. Your fretboard visualization is a result of so many different things that you have done in your life. You might have learned 3-note per string scales when you were 15, like I did. Then you might have gone and you might have learned something slightly different. You might have visualized little bits of the fretboard a certain way because you learned a certain song. So the way that you visualize the fretboard is very unique because of the amalgamation of all the different things that you have learned along the way. And I think if you scale that up to its ultimate kind of endpoint, what you're like as an artist and as a player, there's so many different paths that you can take that to really be a copycat like that is kind of, in my opinion, and this is quite a strong thing to say, but it's fairly inexcusable, really. I think you should know if you've gone down that route, and you should make an effort to kind of alter it. I don't know how you are, but I always cringe a little bit when I see people who've 100% attempted to copy someone's style. I find it very odd indeed. It's like doing impressions of somebody, but it's not funny.
Are you sure? Because apparently I've just tried to copy Guthrie Govan all my life.
Oh, well, so hasn't everybody? So, I mean, to be honest, Jay, your last video did sound just like Guthrie Govan. I'm joking, of course, because that's
definitely thanks.
That's the thing that gets posted on. I don't know if you saw the post that I did on Facebook fairly recently, but
yeah, I did. Yeah,
you did. So,
that's what
I'm joking.
Yes, yeah.
I would hate for you to think I was being serious.
No. I know that. I was playing along, but you weren't getting my face.
I think I was a little bit kind of devastated that you thought I might have been, saying it for real. But there we go. It's all again.
Yes, absolutely. That's a phenomenon that was talked about.
It's a very interesting one.
It is a very interesting one, but it's very true for me, at least. I think Guthrie represents actually a quantum leap in my playing.
Well, the man is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm sure he, especially when, do you remember? You will do the Tone Merchants DVD that came out.
I got it.
Yeah, me too.
From California, baby.
Yep, me too. And I watched it over and over again, and just couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, in many ways, that has influenced me as much as everybody else. So, I'll stick my hand up.
It kind of stopped me making excuses. Actually, is one of the things that it is, because I always thought, you are, or you're another thing. And then when I started to check out Guthrie, I was like, holy shit, you can be any fucking thing you want.
Absolutely.
And it's just, I think that was the most liberating thing about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not only that, but the back in the day, even, so 95, 96, when he was doing stuff for Guitar Techniques magazine, even then, I was sort of realizing that this guy was something special, because one month you would have a load of Pat Metheny licks, and the next month you'd have the transcription of Under a Glass Moon by Dream Theater. The following month you would have Man in the Mirror by, the Tuck Andreas version, and they were all played to this ridiculous level. So what was great for me about Guthrie was just the standard that he set meant that the goals that you set for yourself were ultimately higher than they would have been without Guthrie being there. So if anything, he just sets the goals higher for other guitar players, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, that's Guthrie's contribution to the world. Absolutely. I think, apart from as well as his music. Yeah. But that's another subject. Yes. Tom, I think we should address some questions, but let's get. I mean, if you don't mind, bloody old man.
Say again. I'm sorry, I totally missed that. Say that again.
I said, I hope you don't mind, and I hate to sound like an old man, but I think I think the fourth thing has been discussed in many different places. Yes. And it is a totally legitimate question. I know that. So I would try to sort of, maybe if we can sort of wrap up a kind of fourth thing, pros and cons. Yep. 5 minutes. Give it a go.
So fourth tuning is extremely useful. I can make it shorter than that. If you want to visualize the fretboard and your only concern is, let's say, improvising over chord changes, if you want to be a functional guitar player and play in as many bands as possible, be as varied and as wide as possible, and have the most versatile career, do not tune in fourths whatever you do, because you lose so many guitaristic things. Your country vocabulary has disappeared. Your Stevie Ray stuff has disappeared. Your traditional kind of strumming material has disappeared. However, there are some huge benefits if all you're interested in is being a unique individual and developing your own vocabulary, if you like, as far as you can do. But I never, ever recommend it to any of my students. And when I changed, although fourth tuning is brilliant and it works for a few guitar players, myself included, and Alex Hutchins, and Stanley Jordan, various other guys, what you'll find with a lot of these guys is they don't play in your traditional guitaristic setup in terms of gigs and, career. They tend to do their own thing exclusively, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess that's the difference with the last guy I had on. He'd be anomalous, where there's a sort of brain divide between the theatre stuff and then the fourth tuning jazz thing.
Absolutely.
I guess that's
yeah, I mean,
the way the brain's going.
Well, as a sort of word of warning for it, you turn into a rather schizophrenic guitar player, because when I used to work for Yamaha, I worked for Yamaha for about 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, teaching, and that was my exclusive, it was my only job, if you like. And it was a great job, but all of the material, for obvious reasons, was in standard tuning. Now, this went as far as a huge amount of the Yamaha syllabus, even for beginners, is sight reading notation. Even from day one, they are sight reading, and it's a great idea. But as a guitar player, if your high E string is a high F and your first fret is F sharp, and your third fret is G, as soon as you start having to teach things like Ode to Joy, for instance, in standard tuning, you are saying the word E, but you are seeing the note F, and your brain cannot cope with that at all. And you are, let's say I was teaching for well over 20, probably 25 hours a week. For those 25 hours, I was in standard tuning, and for the rest of the hours of the week that I was playing guitar, I was in fourth tuning, and my brain was in it was in turmoil, let's put it that way. And I saw my playing go through the floor almost, which is why I had to quit the job in the end. I just couldn't do it anymore. And then, for instance, another example, working for Lick Library. So I did a Steely Dan DVD, and at the best of times, that stuff is challenging. But if you then have to learn it and teach it all in a different tuning to the one you're used to playing in, and you have to refer to note names, and everything is a fret, what would it be, a fret higher than you think it's going to be. It's just, I mean, by the end of that, that's a double DVD set, and I taught every single note of every single tune pretty much, one after the other, and I thought I was going to die afterwards. My brain was just completely melted. So realistically, you are very, very much limiting your ability to be employable as a guitarist. And whilst it will be right for a very few people out there, I really wouldn't recommend it to you, because look at your playing, for instance. People, look at Jake's playing. Look at any guitar player you can think of out there who is, up to that standard. You guys are all in standard tuning, and it hasn't affected you too badly. So, yeah. I mean, how did I don't know if I can't remember. What did Ant say about this, Ant Law? Because obviously he tunes in fourths, but he's a semitone lower than me. Is that right? I forget how he does it. His top two strings are B and E, and then he tunes everything the rest down. Flat. Yeah, I mean, that's even crazier.
Same difference.
It's the same difference. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. What I find remarkable about it is actually it's a researcher thing. It's the dedication to take that leap. I've never been sort of brave enough even to sort of attempt it.
Yeah, you see, for me,
maybe it's in my future. Who knows? I did like it. It was.
I mean, it's fairly
closer to my.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into it, and especially if you already play to a very high level, and you suddenly realize that it can, how symmetrical it makes everything, it's very addictive, because you effectively already know how to play with it, because you can play on the bottom four strings. And I mean, when I was at college, there was a guy, because from day one at being at college, I was already in fourths tuning, and this is a big difference. So I didn't know the fretboard at all, and I learned the entire fretboard in fourths. So if you can already play, there's no point changing to fourths tuning. But there was a guy there who, before he did his final recital, which is kind of like, I don't know what it is, but a good 40-50% of the degree mark, about 3 or 4 weeks before, changed to fourths tuning and played a blinder, by the way. It was pretty remarkable, really. But generally can't recommend it, really. And like, I can see Stelios, a good friend of mine, is writing, not to mention he tends to leave all his guitars in that tuning. I'm the guy that goes around trade shows and goes around to people's houses and goes around to studios or whatever, retunes all the guitars and then leaves them that way. And I'm sure there's been many a time where people shake their fist in the air, that Tom Quayle's been tuning guitars again. It's just, don't do it, people.
Speaking of trade shows, you going to NAMM?
I am. Are you coming?
Maybe. It's a possibility.
It's an eye-opening experience in the best possible way.
It's a possibility. When I can, I'll put the word out, and we bevy or two out there.
Oh yes, without a doubt, that would be marvelous. Should we do a couple of other questions as well? Because we seem to have a few.
Definitely. Definitely. Let's go up just in case, because some people got in early. So one question for me. I'll just quickly deal with this. How much of my playing comes from what I learned at Berkeley? Not. Oh man, it's so intangible. I couldn't say how much, Matteo. I would say that what Berkeley gave me was a bit the Guthrie Govan thing. I just saw what other people did, how they got really good, and that I should be doing that.
How long were you there, dude?
That came. It was very it was very expensive. But,
okay.
But it was I just got to sort of see some freaking incredible players.
I bet you did.
And the thing is, it's always good for your humility, I guess, to sort of know where you sit in things. And the less ignorant you are of other players, of other disciplines, the more sort of humility you build into your own practice.
Without a doubt.
I'll never be able to do Borelli Legren.
Yeah.
I should sort of know that what I do is part of a big picture, part of a big sort of niche, and a very unknown deal. Do my thing, and I really bloody enjoy it. And that's kind of it. That's kind of where I kind of leave it.
Just to pick up on that a little bit. I mean, I think the time when you become really comfortable with your playing, because I remember a time where I used to listen back to my playing and really there's again a big cliche, but the first time you hear your voice record and you go, oh my God, do I really sound like that? But I think the time you become comfortable with your own playing and comfortable in your own playing skin, at least to some extent, is when you accept that you aren't Borelli and you're not going to be Borelli, and you're not good. You are you, and you do what you do, and so long as you enjoy what you do, and you can see some merit in it, then I think that's where you become comfortable as a player. And for me, becoming comfortable with myself as a player, I think it allows you to make more progress, because you're not constantly thinking about, oh man, I can't do this, I can't do that, why can't I do this, I need to get onto that, or so on and so forth. So anyway, that's my take on that. So
no, that's fascinating. I have a personal question for you. Is when you hear you're playing, do you hear what you because I put up an improv video on the Jam Track Central Jam of the Month thing, just that. I didn't post it anywhere else because it was just a very casual, very sort of honest bit of playing. It wasn't sort of what I would say, hey, listen to this, man,
we're all gonna go check it out now.
That was kind of my relaxed approach to doing that. It wasn't amazing. It was very natural, but there was a couple of things, and I heard the next phrase when I played it, but I didn't play that phrase. And when I listen to it now, I hear the phrase that should have happened. Do you have that?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh man, it's crippling.
All the time. Except now, it's interesting you say it's crippling. Tell me, what you find crippling about it? Do you beat yourself up about it that you didn't play the phrase that you meant to play, or that not that you meant to play, that you heard?
It was that I still hear the heard phrase when I'm listening to it, as though it's the only inevitable phrase that should ever happen.
But of course,
it doesn't happen. But
yeah.
I wonder whether other people hear that as totally intentional.
Well, of course they do. But the other thing is, it's not the only phrase that was supposed to happen at that point, because it's not what happened. So, you know, the thing that happened is what was supposed. Well, whether you look, that's getting a little bit kind of philosophical, but you know, I think it's one of those things, especially when you improvise, you just have to be very accepting of what happens. And I know we've talked about this before, and I've heard you talk about this before, saying that you kind of exist in your head a little bit when you play, when you improvise. You kind of struggle to get, is this right? You struggle to get out of kind of the head space and just play.
Yeah, I have a busy inner voice unless I'm in a good place. But I can say, and there's actually video evidence, which I'm really grateful for, because it was captured where I have been zoned for at least a minute. You know what I mean?
Isn't it crazy the difference it makes as well? You know, if you're in an environment where, because a huge amount of the stuff that I do when I do play live is in front of an audience of baying guitar players. You know,
fuck that.
If I'm playing trade shows or I'm doing clinics, and you know, I do a lot of kind of teaching masterclasses and clinics and stuff. You know, you're sat in front of a load of guitar players who, they're generally lovely, but they're all kind of, without meaning to, waiting for you to make a mistake. And you know, I think what it gives you is an ability to not worry too much when that, because they do happen frequently, and I kind of just don't worry about them anymore, unless if I was making mistakes all the time and I knew that something was wrong, and I shouldn't really be up on that stage doing those things. But you know, I think my personal take on it is the nature of improvisation is that these things are bound to happen. Just like, you know, you could be, I'm kind of doing it now, be in the middle of a conversation, and you know that thing where you just forget a word or forget a name, and it's on the tip of your tongue and you just can't say it, and there's nothing you can do about it at the time. It's not that you don't know that word, it's not that, you know, that piece of vocabulary is not available to you. For some reason your brain does what's technically known as a brain fart, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, you know, I think you just have to kind of allow yourself. I'm not lecturing you now, by the way, Jake, because I know that you don't need this, you know, me to tell you this, but for me, it's more comfortable for me if I don't think about those mistakes too much. You know, I just kind of try and move on from them, although it's not easy. It's not easy at all. I know that's not always the case that you can do that, but,
no, it's like it makes you a bad person. It's like,
right,
it's like you've got a less beautiful soul.
Yeah. You don't deserve to play the guitar, Jake. Move on to something else.
But it's a bit like singing. Like, if you haven't got a nice voice, you're a bad person, and we're a bit genetically wired up for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
you know, that we hear tune and we think, oh crikey, terrible.
Yeah, we relate someone's human worth to their musical skills.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, you must die now. We're going to stone you.
I swear, I honestly believe there's a tiny bit of that in our musical interactions.
Oh, I completely agree with you.
That we think, oh, they must have terrible breath. You know,
that's very specific.
Yeah, we just you know, we attribute other attributes to people based on their musical abilities.
Well, now I've definitely developed a complex about making mistakes, because every time you watch my video, what's Jake thinking about me now? Oh my god!
No,
I'm joking, by the way.
It's not a conscious thing. I'm saying it's maybe because we just historically we kind of associate, you know, the siren.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that can sing a beautiful melody and has a kind of double-edged identity to it. It's persuasive, is what I guess I'm saying. Is there is a power and ability there, and it's obviously evolved. You know, speech, for example, evolved because we have the most useless babies in the world. No other babies come out and don't walk straight away.
Well, yeah, exactly. Within seconds, even a giraffe, it drops from 6 feet and then it's up on its legs within, you know, half an hour and wandering around. Yeah, we are fairly useless.
Look at those legs. And the other thing is that the monkeys, when they're born, they grab onto the mum's head, and they can do it. So the mum's got hands.
Yeah, it is. It is
humans. We need to hold that motherfucker.
It is remarkable we survived as a species in general, to be honest, and that we continue to thrive. But there we go.
Music. Speech and music.
There we go. Absolutely.
Anyway, from that slightly totally ignorant highbrow thing, should we do? How are you recording the new stuff, Tom? This is from Justin Bulmer.
Yeah, so all my recording is generally done with the Axe Effects. I say all, but not all of it. That is for two reasons. First is convenience, and the second is because trying to mic up an amp in my room. I mean, you've never been here, but for anybody, there's a few guys in the chat who've been here, and they will know that my room is the worst for noise. In terms of, there's a train line nearby, there's electrical static noise. Like Stelios, as we did experiments, fairly in-depth experiments to find out what was causing it. You step outside the house even an inch and it disappears. You're back in the house and it's ridiculous. So trying to mic up amps and stuff is a non-starter. Whereas the Axe Effects is very useful for that kind of thing. On the odd occasion that I want to record with an amp, what I do is I never mic up an amp ever, or very, very occasionally I will mic up with an SM57, but I run the output of the speaker from the amp into a torpedo reload, and then I use speaker simulation to kind of deal with that side of things, because miking up amps is a non-starter here.
You're really into that now.
What's that you're into? Sorry?
The impulse responses.
Oh yes. Well, you've just got, what's that thing called? The amplifier? Is that right?
Mate,
don't try and sell me a new piece of gear.
I'm not selling it. I'm not selling it. It's but I tell you this, I've always shied away from making videos because I can't create the sound I want.
Right.
And I'd have to sort of, mic up an amp and do this. And without that, I can't really. It's not my voice.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And so I've always I've always wanted to give more, and I've got certain things I want to do, but it's never had that. And I've always like yearned for the Kemper. Anyway, this opportunity came about where I could do a demo for these guys, and the relationship grew from there.
What a demo!
And I've had it.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But I have had so much pleasure sitting around and messing with it. It's just, in the space that it's been there, I've thought, well, there's nothing stopping me now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's really changed how to maybe progress from here. So I'm really quite indebted to Tom King at Atomic. He's been very, very cool. I'm really, really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, they've always been a really good company. I remember back in the day when they were doing kind of the tube power amps for Axe Effects use, and they had, their speakers have always been. They released the CLR, and it was always kind of, seen as being the daddy of, excuse the technical term, but FRFR, full flat response, full range speakers for Axe Effects users. So they've always done good stuff. I'm a big fan. But it's interesting that you're doing the impulse response thing now. So that unit, just to get a little bit technical real quick, and then we'll address another question. You can load your own impulse responses on there. Is that right?
I can load in to the unit itself. So even if I take it out of the house, use the MixIR red wires impulse response thing.
Yeah, same as the ones.
Even if I don't use that. Well, actually, I use the Amp Factory ones.
Okay. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yes.
Which are the same guys that made a load of profiles for the Kemper, right?
They did, but they've also made a load of, and you can get them on their website. Yeah, they've made a load of impulse responses for loading in.
Oh, that's what I'll be doing after this then, checking those
out.
So,
which is kind of very, very similar technology, but it's added a whole new dimension to the way I do things.
Yeah.
For the videos that I did, everything was matched, but it's at the moment it's kind of like holy crap, you know, I can do it. I can do it now. It's nice.
So you must be feeling really inspired to put video content together right now, which is just a good thing for the world all around.
Absolutely. You know what? It's not easy to do videos. Yeah. It's always really, really, especially when you're on your own.
Yeah.
I had two when I did the Jam Chat Central stuff. I had another monitor connected up to my camera, a remote, all sorts of things. I had a mic amped up very quiet because I can't spend all day just doing like bloody thing, and that puts a time limit on it. So it can be quite stressful, actually, as you know. But it's right now. I've lost that monitor because it's died, and but I don't worry about it so much. I'm not doing anything sort of pro level right now. But I've got this incredibly nice new Fender Select, which I haven't actually even properly set up, which is lovely, and that's inspiring me, and the Atomic's inspiring me, and I'm yeah. Also, I will say this. I will say this, right? Okay. TCL recently shared a video of mine,
right?
Just totally out of the blue, and we're amazing. Anyway, so I just using strokes of luck, absolute sort of stroke of luck. They very, very generously sent me one of their clip tuners.
Oh yeah.
Bloody amazing.
Yeah, I've got one.
I know you. Yeah, right. Talking about how a little bit of equipment, a little bit of things can make your life better.
Yep.
And easier. It is always within arm's reach, because setting up a tuner, setting up something else to do it, it's not easy. And I've always found clip-on tuners to be a little bit shit, a little bit inaccurate, and slow. Once the TC is up and running, it's the most incredible thing. I set up my intonation with it. I find it that accurate.
Do you know the thing that really pleased me the most? And is incredibly sad, is that when it arrived, it looked like it was made by Apple. It came in this beautiful piece of, the slidable packaging. Just little things that please me. I don't know why, but yeah, it's a ridiculously good product. They've they always hit a blinder. They hit them out of the park with every product they make. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm aware that the last maybe 20 minutes may have sounded like a like an advert, but it isn't like that. No. What it is that certain products do make your life better and do make you. And we kind of got onto this randomly via the impulse responses thing.
Yeah,
but no, it's I wouldn't get behind anything that was terrible.
Couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely,
and things make you and inspire you, and that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah, and you've probably had the same thing, but I've had companies approach me to kind of do videos for products, and I've said no, because I wouldn't say to the company that I thought the product was not good enough, but I don't mean good enough for me. I mean good enough for everybody else to buy if I was advertising it. And sometimes you do have to say no to these things, because not everything is as good as the stuff that TC makes, and you need a little bit of integrity, I think, as far as these things go. Only advertise the things that you would use yourself, I would say.
I have had that. Yep. But I've had that only once.
That's enough. It's enough.
You don't
need it more than once.
Yeah, exactly. And but let's I'm really enjoying this. It's fascinating. So the next thing is, so we've done the recording one. I think this is pronounced Wojciech.
Possibly, yeah, Wicklow.
Wojciech, is that right? He's still listening, or she. I have no idea.
It's Bugs Bunny, apparently.
Yeah, Tom. Some of the fastest guitarists I know, like Marshall Harrison, Rick Graham, Brett Garsed, and you, are using hybrid picking. Do you find that using this technique significantly boosts your speed? I think there might be a bit of a misconception buried in there somewhere.
Yeah, possibly. So the thing with hybrid picking for me is it is a very important part of my playing. So first thing, I need to clarify something, because people ask me this all the time. I only use my middle finger on the right hand, unless I'm comping, unless I'm playing chordal stuff, in which case I use all of my fingers on the right hand. But for lead playing and for general kind of playing, I use my middle finger, and it's certainly not for the sake of speed. I'm not entirely sure that hybrid picking would boost your speed unless you were doing a huge amount of string skipping or wide interval stuff, at which point the picking would become such an issue that obviously it could only deal with. I've just seen something that you've written in the group chat, Jake. Sorry. It would only kind of build speed if that was the case and you were doing big kind of interval jumps. However, for me, the reason I use it is twofold. First of all, because it allows me to be more creative, primarily because of that kind of interval jump, and also because I was very into Greg Howe back, as I was saying, in about 2005, 2006, and ended up doing a lot of his kind of stuff, and that came up in there a lot. But the main reason I use it, and I don't have a guitar to demonstrate, so you'll just have to trust me on this one, is when I am playing the legato stuff, I always use the analogy, and this won't work for a lot of guitar players. They don't want this in their playing. But that particular element of my playing, when I'm doing the kind of high subdivision kind of, so I'm thinking dagga, 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 dagga. I'm not playing kind of the Satriani style legato. I'm thinking specific subdivisions. It allows me to do string crosses without accenting the string crosses. So if you think about, if I played, because a lot of guitar players will know what this is, if you played a 3-note per string scale, but you're playing 16th notes, I obviously want to group.
I know exactly.
So you'll end up with groups of 3 as you cross the string, which is obviously not what you want. Now, if you were doing it on purpose because you wanted that effect, that's one thing. But if you're doing it because of a lack of control, that's a separate thing entirely. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I'm trying to even out like an old Moog or Moog, however you pronounce it, synthesizer, where basically, and no matter how hard you hit the key, you got the same dynamic attack, or velocity as they call it in MIDI terms, the same velocity on each note, or the same volume on each note. So hybrid picking, because effectively I use the flesh, horrible word, on my finger as opposed to the nail. I don't play with the nail at all. In fact, there is almost no fingernail sticking over the fingertip. It gives me a softer sound than when I play with the pick. And I guess the third reason is, so you've got kind of creativity, consistency of attack. The third reason is it basically gives me far, far, far less movement in my right hand. So something that people say to me all the time when I do sort of lessons and clinics and stuff, is that right hand hardly looks like it's moving when I'm playing. If I then demonstrate the same thing and attempt, because I can't actually do it, if I attempt to pick the string crosses, the amount of movement is significantly more, and it's an efficiency thing basically. So very geeky, but it's an efficiency thing as far as technique goes. I mean, you do it, don't you, Jake?
Only thing to add to that is that in my I down that road, and but the thing is, I guess it's, again, I could have got away with it in many ways, but I was playing in a very loud band,
right?
And I just needed to project. So I developed a way around it, which is making the accents of what I played even louder than the general playing style.
So again, that's really interesting, because that's another scenario where a technical approach has been formed by a necessity for you with a particular musical scenario you found yourself in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think that's kind of one of the most interesting things that's come out of this particular exchange is how we're formed.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a kind of there's a life lesson in there. So and it's something we can't do a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, it's breaking up a bit, so I'm missing a couple of things that you're saying, but I think I got the gist of that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting how musical scenarios that you find yourself in will develop you as a player in ways you never even expected. But that would be kind of my take on hyperpicking. So certainly, it's not a kind of speed consideration as such. It's never been that for me, anyway. It might be for some people. Should we do the next one?
Yeah, I like speed, but it's not. Speed.
Yes,
it's not all that important. Weird question from Felipe. How much time do you spend properly listening to music compared to the time you spend playing?
Oh, I'm going to embarrass myself now. I'm going to let you answer that question first, actually.
Man, it depends. I mean, I go. I am a very completist listener.
Oh, right. Now that's a very respectable trait to still have in this day and age.
I will. I mean, do you know Adrian Clark?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, like Adrian Clark and I have very similar. I think I'm just kind of projecting this because this is just what I get from what he's done. I'll get really into something, and then I'm into it, and then it's all anyone hears from me. The other. I mean, it comes weird. It comes from like weird places too. It's not like I seek it out. The drummer from Harmless Funk plays in a band called The Feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was aware and liked The Feeling before I met Paul or any of the other guys.
Hang on, isn't that a pop band?
Yeah, it is a pop band, yes.
I know The Feeling, yes. I know the band anyway.
I love it when you call it all that.
Yeah, man, that's actually, as far as pop music goes, stuff that I'm really into. Not that I'm not into pop music of certain descriptions, but that's seriously well-written pop music.
It's amazing. And I just went in. I love it. Nice. So I get into it that way, or I'll someone check out everything. So I checked everything out,
yeah,
and they're blindingly amazing.
What a band!
And then all of a sudden, my friends, my parents will attest to this. I'm like, you got to check this out. This is amazing. And then it's like I kind of force it on people.
They were on Jules Holland, by the way, the other day.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. An ex-Surrey mate of mine plays keyboards for them, which is actually how I heard of them. I don't tend to hear about much that doesn't come into my sort of immediate sphere. It's almost like I lost it, and then it's there, and I'll give it a chance. Like Leanne LaHavis.
No, checked out her? No, new.
Oh, she's amazing. Who else does it happen with? Esperanza Spalding, I got really, really into recently.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then other things. I mean, Ryan Adams was Brian, not Brian.
Well, I'm a huge Rufus Wainwright fan. Probably one of the biggest out there. I mean, his stuff is just Jesus. Like one and want two. I remember I worked at Virgin Megastore. I won't go into a big story here, but I worked at Virgin Megastore, and that stuff came on what they called Virgin Radio, which was very different to what normal Virgin Radio. This was in-store radio, and it came on, and I stopped doing everything I was doing, put everything down, and just stood. I must have looked like a right weirdo. Stood there, listening to this thing, and immediately bought the album. And I listened to it religiously for about 6 months. Oh my God, it was ridiculous. I've seen him live a few times, and again, just. There's so much to be gained from that stuff in terms of, I don't even know how to describe it, but his stuff inspires me hugely still to this day, and his songwriting is incredible.
Yeah.
But yes, I fear we've kind of moved off topic a little bit, but that's my fault. Sorry. But so as far as
I actually still think it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, without a doubt.
It's just for the sake of it. The other thing that happened in my life that I've talked about a lot is that I got really into classical music, and that was another almost what's the word? Like I got possessed by it, and I was really interested in how it was put together, and it totally changed my value system for what music was about, what music could achieve.
Yeah,
And what happened was actually I remember so vividly, almost being moved to tears by I was singing in the university choir at Surrey, which was such a good experience. I love Surrey University. So certain things have happened recently that are slightly less cool, but there we go. But we sang Mahler's Second Symphony, in the concert, and at the end of it, there's just this part of that huge musical moment orally, which really helped my playing as well, by the way. But being part of that was just one of those kind of transcendental musical experiences.
Yeah, and
you just can't sort of shrug that off. You end up getting really into that because you need your next fix, and that kind of put me into a totally different sort of world. And I'm actually writing a lot at the moment, which is inspired by classical music, but it's more kind of inspired by that in terms of what I want it to do structurally rather than like aesthetically. That's another thing. I'll some demos.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be interested to hear your take on it.
absolutely. I mean, it's interesting, you should say that, Reed, because although I've never gone down that road of trying to compose anything like that, the feeling you get when, and this is not meant to sound cheesy or kind of zen at all, but the moment you look up at the stars on a particularly good night, and you get that very odd feeling of kind of totally incomprehensible awe. You just can't believe the vastness of everything. That same feeling, the only time that I get that in a big way from music is listening to certain composers and certain pieces, because I just cannot comprehend how that beauty and that vastness of sound and vastness of creativity has come out of one person's brain. And Ravel just totally and utterly destroys my brain. So does Sibelius. Ravel and Sibelius, my word. Just the two of them, and they're very different, obviously. But
I've never been so into. I mean, he's amazing. Don't get me wrong, but Sibelius, but Ravel for me is probably the master of masters.
Totally.
Check out. Are you familiar with the piano trio?
Yeah. I mean, I have everything, or not everything, but I bought from working at Virgin Megastore. I bought so much of this stuff. I bought a lot of the scores as well. I used to sit and sort of read through the scores while the stuff was on.
Oh, that's such a good exercise, man. I can't say how much I learned from that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to take anything away from this, if classical music doesn't interest you in the slightest, buy scores for. If you're a Michael Brecker fan, buy Michael Brecker transcriptions and just read through them whilst the tune is on. It's the song is on. It's just so useful. But for me, the left hand piano concerto, the piano concerto for left hand in G major, just blows my mind.
Have you seen the Bernstein video of him playing that conducting?
No, I want to go and watch that. That reminds me of something else. I mean, again, going totally off topic, but have you ever seen or heard the Leonard Bernstein lectures on the harmonic series?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, baby.
Whoa.
Have you heard his Chichester Psalms?
No, I haven't. I haven't really investigated him enough. Really,
he's a don, man. He's again next level.
Well, Michael Tippett as well. Another one. Just what the hell?
I'm not actually.
Not a big fan.
But it's kind of placing him within the other people I'm big fans of.
Well, his
and also I don't get on with his way of doing things sometimes. But I loved Child in.
Yeah, that's the classic one. But his autobiography is an interesting read as well. Very interesting read, because he was a conscientious objector and all sorts of things. But anyway,
it was on the list, shall we say?
Yeah. So if I was to answer that same question, I will embarrass myself by saying that I almost never sit down and listen to an album all the way through anymore, and I used to religiously, not in a way that like I would sit down and make time for it. I couldn't not do it. Whereas now the amount of time I actually get to, when I was 15 or 16, people would come around to the house. My parents would have like friends round, or we'd have a party at New Year or something. I would make people stand in the kitchen where we had a kind of decent sounding CD player and make them listen to Under a Glass Moon, or you have to hear this, because I thought they would have the same reaction as me. And back in those days, like I used to have when I was at university, I had a CD player next to the bed with a pair of headphones. I had to get headphones because my flatmate used to send me text messages at 3 a.m. saying, "Turn Bill Evans off." And I would sit and listen.
How do you know it was Bill Evans?
Well, he knew what he was doing. We were both at college, so he knew the stuff. He was a good guitar player, actually, a good friend of mine. And I then used to listen to music on headphones.
That was a time remembered, was it?
Yeah, well, there we go. Boom.
Thank you.
It was
so you made your piece with him.
It was a very early part of my career development.
Very, very good.
Oh dear. So
everybody digs
Bill
Evans.
Oh my word! These are very inside jazz jokes now. This is terrible. But yeah, I mean, nowadays the amount of time I actually spend listening to music on a regular basis is almost nil, which is appalling. And I've done the classic thing of I've stocked up a huge amount of music over the years on various hard drives, 95% of which is legitimately owned by me, by the way. I haven't downloaded a huge amount of stuff. And you know, I'd say there's a good 40-50% of it I've never even heard. You know, it's bizarre the way, you know, I consume music these days, and it is partly because I'm busy, but it's also to do with just the change of mindset that the internet has given, or the change of consciousness that the internet has given people. It's very, very bizarre. I don't really know how to put my finger on it, but I know me and Martin have talked about this a lot, and I don't know if I can't remember if it came up in your chat with Martin, but he's exactly the same as me. In fact, we are very similar in many ways when it comes to stuff like this. It's quite bizarre. Whereas it sounds like you've managed to retain a listening skill, if you like.
I might have given that impression, but actually it just comes in waves. There'll be I don't go seeking anything out anymore.
Right.
That's that makes me sad. I think if I heard myself say that when I was 16, I think that would upset me, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dan Smith and I were in Budapest recently for my birthday with the Fibonacci guys, and we found an old school record store, which just don't exist. Certainly in Leeds, they don't really exist anymore, especially if you are wanting to buy improvised music. So, you know, in my case, jazz. And that kind of excitement that you used to get of going into a music store and thumbing through the records, oh my God, it just came back immediately. And I bought a Steve Swallow album and this album here, which is called Travel Guide, by with Ralph Town and Wolfgang Mullspiel and Slava Grigorian, and sat down for the first time in a very long time and listened to albums all the way through. And that whole thing of, you know, you remember ECM records, the way they look, the artwork on the front, they've got this very specific kind of vibe to them. And it was just amazing picking up an ECM record again on CD and looking at the artwork, seeing Manfred Eicher's name on the back. I used to buy the catalogue every year and look through it to see what I would buy, and these days it just doesn't happen. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a I don't know. It's gone, hasn't it? It's really gone. That thing. I think it's. Have you ever read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
Yes, I have it in the bookshelf over there.
I don't know how it's like that, but it's like that, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it's really stupid, really, because the way that buying and browsing for albums makes me feel. I miss it so much, or it's not even I miss it. When I get it again, and that was the first time in a good long while that I've had that experience. I don't know why I don't seek it out more, but I think we all convince ourselves that we're so busy these days that we don't have time to consume music. But yet I'll sit down and play Destiny for 3 hours. So
yeah, or watch inconsequential videos on YouTube.
Air Crash Investigation. That's my my current one.
It's an instance, isn't it? It's the instant gratification of it.
Yeah.
We're losing a bit of maybe richness, but I think that might just be me. I mean, other people seem to still fucking love music, and that it always inspires me when I come across those people. And it gives me my a little bit of impetus. Actually, it reminds me that there's a. I mean, I listen to myself talk here, and it sounds like it's like I'm looking down from above on something, but it's not that. It's just when you've been involved in something for like now feels like all my adult life.
Well, that's it, because it kind of is like looking down from above. Because sorry, you broke up there. I might have interrupted you. I apologize.
No, you haven't. I actually lost you.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, it is kind of like looking down and above, because you can see how, especially if you're, I mean, I'm 35 now, and, you know, as I say, I've been doing this since I was 15, so 20 years of this. You go through various different developmental stages, so you can see, you can think of your life and whatever you can remember from being a child. But, you know, I can look back at the way I thought about music and the way I thought about guitar and the way I listened to music and consumed music 20 years ago as compared to now, and there's 5 or 6 different stages along that route. And so I can look at all of those from a top-down perspective and imagine, you know, what it felt like, whereas now I can see a definite disconnect. I think there's probably some great research papers out there or something you could read, great articles explaining this phenomenon, but I certainly feel a disconnect from listening to music in the way I used to. But then, like we said, I know some people who don't, like Dave Bronze, for instance. You know, I know he still listens to music on a regular basis. I have friends who are jazz musicians who still regularly buy, like a friend of mine, great bass player Gary Jackson, comes around almost every single time to my place, and he's got a new album or two to listen to. Check out this guy, check out so and so, and he listens to the whole album, and his record collection is enormous. I actually boxed up my entire CD collection about 6 months ago and haven't pulled any of them out since, which is kind of sad.
Do you listen?
Oh, totally lost you there. Say that again.
Sorry, do you listen to music in the car?
Yeah, every single time. But disgustingly, have a guess what I put on.
Disgustingly, oh, that's horrible. Because now I have to guess, right? Just to socially, let's just start unwind this. Because you just said disgustingly, I listened to this, really, and now whatever I say, I'm going to be.
Let me just tell you then. Let me take the pressure off. I stick Radio 2 on in my car.
That's not disgusting, mate. That's not disgusting.
But it's not. I'm a musician. I should stick. It's not always the case. Like recently, I had Mike Caswell's album on in my car. It's a fantastic album. Thomas Blue gave me his CDs, and I've been checking those out. And it's a real nice thing to listen to music in the car. But I genuinely think there is an element of, and Martin and I've talked about this a lot. If you do this for a living, and I play guitar 6-7 hours a day. Because I'm lucky enough to have the guitar in my hand all day, unless I'm driving or doing something else. And listening to music is not the thing that comes to mind when I put the guitar down. The thing that comes to mind is doing something completely unrelated. It's just, I want to relax and do something else.
Escapism.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Sorry, give me a second.
No worries.
Yeah. It's just I'm quite happy to go and sit down and relax, because listening to music is an active skill. You don't, there are certain things I'll listen to relax. So, for instance, I'm a big Imogen Heap fan, and I'll stick Imogen Heap on. I'm totally in love with her as well, by the way, but my partner knows. And I will stick Imogen Heap on and relax to it, or Rufus Wainwright now, because I know the stuff inside out. So it's one of those things. Whereas if I stick the latest album, let's say with a drummer like Eric Harland on, I need to actively listen. And it's not that it's hard work, it just takes more effort than I'm inclined to after 6 or 7 hours of having a guitar in my hand, or shooting a video, or working for Lick Library, or doing whatever. It's, I don't know. And I always, every new year, I always make a little bit, I don't really do New Year's resolutions, but if I do one, it's always, right, I'm going to listen to more music this year. And I never do. So maybe this is the year, 2016. We'll see.
Well, I think there's something else in there that is that when you develop a habit for active listening, you realize that if you're going to give it what it deserves, and therefore that it should be reserved to a kind of more sacred space time-wise.
Well and truly. And I think it's one of those things that you need to do, like ideally, although this is impossible where I live, but you would have a room with nothing but a CD player in it and some speakers, because it's so easy these days. If you play all of your music from your laptop with a pair of headphones on, or if you play, in my case, I've got a really nice set of monitors here with a beautiful audio interface. Everything's set up for the best possible sound quality. I'll go on to, I don't use iTunes anymore because it screws up my system, because I'm using Windows. So I'll go on to, whatever app I'm using, and I'll load some music. And Chrome is too close to my mouse, so I'll click on Chrome, and I'm listening to music, and I'm on Facebook at the same time. Facebook, where productivity and active listening now will add to the list, goes to die, basically. It's very tricky these days.
Absolutely, it is tricky, and I think we're learning. I think we're learning how to manage it.
Absolutely,
I think that's the upshot. I think maybe because I found myself now. I used to be. I'll put this out there. It's a bit embarrassing. I was pretty much addicted to point and click escape games.
Now, I'm not sure what a point and click escape game, not a point and click adventure game. That sounds like something different. An escape game.
No, it's something a bit more dull. A point and click. It's like, imagine Monkey Island, but in like 3 rooms, and you've got to try and get out. And it's all sort of like, it's puzzles basically, but it's kind of a visual puzzle plus other things.
Interesting.
That sort of that develops into sort of a big habit,
right?
And from that sort of habit, other things there were other things that would happen, because I didn't want to listen to the music that was on it, but I would put on something in the background.
Okay, I see.
Maybe a podcast, maybe something else. But yeah, I was sort of kind of big into that. But anyway, I have saturated it. I'm off of it. It doesn't interest me any longer. It might come up when I've got like nothing on, or I'm starting to sort of maybe ache a bit in my left hand from playing. So
you've escaped from every clickable escape route you'll ever escape from.
Yeah, exactly. No, I literally know I get what the games have done, and so it's actually a different thought process to what it used to be.
Yeah, so
which is really totally sad. I'll send you some. There's one company who do like actually really good ones.
Okay, yeah, send me some links. I'll lose many hours, I'm sure.
But they're good hours actually. Those are good. I was into the shit ones.
Nice.
But it's like Sudoku or crosswords or something. You know, it's something to occupy you, and it is active thinking. But it's but you can put it on in the background. Anyway, all these things. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've actually started to wean myself off of them, and I think I'm learning more how to deal with this screen to me. iPhone anymore.
I think it's a really good idea, and we should probably move on to another question after this. But I think it's a really good idea every now and again to take a 100% internet and phone break for a week. You know, so go and stay somewhere like I did last September. You know, where I stayed, you had no option because there was no internet and there was no phone. As in, you'd have to drive for 6 or 7 miles to even pick up an internet signal. And that was phenomenal. If not a little disconcerting, but phenomenal at the same time.
Well, new environments are really good in general for inspiring, I think.
Well and truly. I mean, even to the point where I'll move my studio around every now and again. Every 6 months to a year, I just reconfigure it because it totally changes the way that you feel in your environment. And like you say, it's not necessarily inspires, but reinvigorates. Your word is a good way of looking at it. So yes, that's something that I do fairly regularly. Happy to move on to another question.
Yeah, me too. Let's do so Brett McReynolds says, what are some ways you get out of improvisational ruts?
Okay, so he says, I've already mentioned slowing down and focusing on rhythm first. Okay, so that's two separate things. Improvisational ruts. Okay, well, transcription is always a good idea, although I've done far less of that than I used to. I used to transcribe loads, but don't do so much anymore. But other ways, blimey, improvisation.
Well, I have a two way thing.
Go for it.
Is one. I've never gotten worse. I've only ever gotten better.
Okay.
Or develop my vocabulary, develop my pathway knowledge by transcribing.
Yep.
And by transcribing in a sort of half rigorous, half standoffish analytical way.
Yes.
So I haven't always learned how to play it, but I've kind of just looked at it and then, that's interesting. Maybe I should do more of that.
Yeah, I've done both as well. Yeah,
that's kind of the way I approach it. I don't look at it like, okay, now I need to learn how to play it totally
and perfectly. Then write it down.
That is good. That is good too. That is really good too.
It's all
both
good.
ways. Yeah, both ways are good, and only you're actually in need of. If your intuition sucks, then you're fucked. Then exercises, limitation.
Yes, of course.
All day. Limitation is the way forward.
Absolutely. Buy Mick Goodrick's book, The Advancing Guitar Player. It's got a load of... Although, now, this is an interesting thing because limitation exercises, people are always, now you've mentioned them, I should have thought of it, but people are always saying, what can I do? What exercises can I do? I find that really all you need to do to get good at or to develop good practice techniques is be a little bit creative. You know, it only takes a little bit of creativity to come up with a practice exercise, a limitation exercise that you can do that'll last you for weeks if you so desire. And again, if you come up with one that you really enjoy and become addicted to it, it no longer feels like practice. So that's really a huge key to moving forwards, is developing the ability to design your own limitation exercises rather than have someone spurt them out for you and tell you what to do. Because you'll find things that you're very interested in that really kind of intrigue you. And there's a vast number of things that you can do to limit the way that you practice improvisation on the guitar. Just use your imagination.
Yeah, and go with the first thing you think about. Don't sit there and just you come up with 10
lists of things. Yeah,
just go with it. Just bloody do it. Be in the moment. Be in the moment more. Don't although this might not work for everyone. I realize we're all different. Some people get a lot out of the listing, but for me, I think, okay, 3, the number 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could mean in 3 quavers. It could mean 3 crotches.
Yeah,
it could mean. Or it
3
could
notes
mean
per bar. It could mean 3 notes per phrase. It could mean
3 notes per string.
Phrase for 3 bars, then leave a rest, or whatever. There's so many different things that you could apply that to.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. It's you've kind of got to give yourself a pass to be creative in a way that isn't genius.
Absolutely.
You've got to say, okay, right, I'm going to just do something. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen, and that's going to fill some time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I improvise.
Well, in actual fact, that is pretty much the way. That's what I'm talking about with slowing down and allowing your cerebral processes to take over. Where if you want to play certain limitation exercises, you need to also allow your brain to operate at the speed. Your brain can only operate the speed it wants to operate at. And I believe you can train your brain to get faster and faster and faster at these things and more creative.
You build up neural networks is what's happening.
Well and truly, yeah, absolutely. Anything that you do repeatedly, you get better and faster and more efficient at. But you need to start slowly. So the other thing I would say is, and I know I've already mentioned slowing down, but just don't shy away or be worried about doing things slowly or out of time, or working at the pace. Don't ever be embarrassed or kind of worried about the pace that you're working at. You can only work at the pace that your brain will allow you to.
Which is slow, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's the thing. Don't think for a moment ever that it just sort of happens. Nope. It's a very slow process. The sort of real thing that maybe like you, Martin, done is that they just did it.
Yeah.
They just sat and did it. It takes a long time. It really does. No one is born a genius.
Enjoy the journey as well. I know it's cheesy, but enjoy the journey.
Enjoy can be a difficult thing because a lot of the time the journey is pent up with inadequacy. But that's a mental space you need to get yourself into to think, well, inadequacy is okay because I deserve only to be inadequate at the moment.
Well, you learn that along the journey. I mean, for instance, I see this a lot with students that some of the students not that I teach that many now, but some of the students I teach or hang out with, you go through jazz college doing a jazz degree and you're convinced that you're going to be Kurt Rosenwinkel by the time you come out. And all you need really is patience and a small reality check. And I say small reality check. You don't want a reality check that punches you in the face, and kind of wins you. But you need a reality check to say it's okay to not be Kurt Rosenwinkel, and it's okay to not be Kurt Rosenwinkel in 15 to 20 years time either, even though he's this ridiculous thing at this young age. You can be you, and you can, and again it sounds kind of zen and a bit kind of cheesy, but you allow yourself to be the player you are and just kind of relax a little bit. This again is a cliche, but music is not a race, it's not a competition. It's if you're enjoying yourself and you're having a good time and working at the same time, then music is for you. If you are finding that every single thing you do is a struggle and you're hating it and you hate yourself, and music is causing you major issues, and you're constantly worrying about why you are not achieving the things that you want to achieve, you're either doing something very, very badly wrong, or music is not for you, really. Which is probably a kind of bold statement to make, but
no, I think that's fascinating. I would bolt on to that. you know, the thing about Kurt Rosenwinkel, let's use him as an example, is I am absolutely fascinated by his guitar playing. I would go as far as say I love what he does. I have a kind of a deep, passionate connection with. Wired my brain differently. It's wired my brain differently, like Guthrie maybe, but it's wired my brain differently about what I think is good and what I think is possible.
Yeah.
And what I better than something else, and what I think is this and what I think is that, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so whenever I put something out, having known that, you know, I was like, whenever anyone's like moved by it or wants to share it or likes it, I think, well, go and listen to Kurt Rosenwinkel, mate.
Yeah, it's a funny one, that, isn't it? I know exactly what you mean.
It's a weird thing, and you forget the value about what you do is actually, at the end of the day, you just created someone, and someone's day has been made maybe 30% better for that hour because of what you did, or maybe 30% worse if they're a struggling guitar player. But that's that's another issue.
Yeah, that's a tricky one to deal with. That I don't know how to deal with, because I have that same thing with my album. You know, that whole thing of, well, you know, such and such a player would do so much better job than I'm going to do. So the answer that you would end up coming to if you went down that path is, well, never release anything, don't play a note ever again, which is ridiculous. You know, it's a dark path to go down. That is really, if you're going to start thinking down that route. And again, if you are kind of ending up going down that route, you know, I would start to think again about how you feel about music, and maybe take a little break for a bit and come back to it, because music's not like one of the most inspiring things I ever heard. It was one of the simplest things I ever heard as well. And you know John Wheatcroft, don't you?
I have played with John, and
you have, yes.
We are conversant. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I. But massive amounts of admiration for the man and his playing.
He's incredible.
So one of the nicest people I've had the pleasure of working with. I think maybe he felt that he had to be more supportive because he was that much better than me. Do you know what I mean?
John, he's an incredibly inspiring man, and I've done a clinic, or I don't know, I've done 2 clinics with him, and he's a terrifying person to teach afterwards. But one thing he says, and it almost sounds cheesy in its simplicity, is he says there's a reason why it's called playing music. It's supposed to be fun, and it's not always fun, but at the end of the day, the end result is supposed to be fun. And I think you've got to remember that, you know, whilst you should take it as seriously as you can, if you're not finding it fun, and if you find it an incredibly stressful kind of, you know, something that's causing you issues in terms of like how you feel about yourself, if you're feeling like terrible about yourself because you can't play the things that you want to play, you know, remember that it's supposed to be a fun thing. You're supposed to enjoy it. And also something that's really relevant for a lot of guitar players is, remember the reason you picked the instrument up in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, I experienced this a lot when I was doing the jazz thing, the jazz degree. You end up forgetting, you get so wrapped up in becoming this thing, becoming Kurt Rosenwinkel or whoever, you know, name your favorite jazz musician, that you forget the absolute passion and dedication and love for the instrument that you had when you first sat down with it, that you were so obsessed with this thing that you couldn't put it down. And you go from, you know, something you've got to be very wary of. You go from this period of total love and passion for the instrument to telling yourself off because you can't do something. I think you need to try and avoid that thought process if possible. It's not easy, but I think it's a healthy thing to do, to stop telling yourself off when you can't do things, and you know, allow yourself to enjoy the process. It's easy to say that, but it's not so easy to do. So
it's really not easy to do. I did the Tommy thing recently,
yeah.
As you know, and I'll just quickly share maybe a couple of minutes to sum up that experience, because I think there's a tie in there. Basically, when you make a mistake in an improv jazz fusion situation, it's totally different to making a mistake in the high pressure world of musical theatre. But it's totally different in terms of what's expected. It's so critical, you know. to what actors are doing on stage when certain things need to happen, and your priorities all of a sudden, the tectonic plates of your priorities shift.
Wow.
They
earthquakes
really
ensue.
No, they really do, and it exposes everything.
Yeah.
Flaws in your gear, the lead, the cable that you hadn't even noticed was on the brink. All of a sudden is being amplified a million times to an audience.
Butterflies in my stomach just thinking about it.
While there are people going out there, but it was an on stage part as well, so I'd have to sort of set up a sound ready for 2 songs time, turn pages ready for 2 songs time while playing like a piece, and then go up, walk ready, so I was ready, and then incidentally Pod HD 400, which totally saved my life. And incidentally sounded annoyingly good. It really did. In that environment, when it's coming into your in ears, it's kind of like it's better than a mic'd up amp in many ways. I love my amp. I adore the sound that comes out of my amp. But in that environment, a different tool is needed, and you just learn so much really quickly. And when you're playing, we were playing like 10 shows a week or something, and it's all that sort of critical pressure, and it's majorly fuck up apart from once.
But I'm assuming the process was very rewarding, and also you became a better musician for the process.
I did, and I think it's made me think about it's made me think about certain parameters that need to be worked on. I think one thing that I made too many mistakes. I really did.
Right. So you were conscious of it. You kind of, what, did you feel bad about it or something, or?
I made more mistakes than my peers.
Are you sure about that, or was it that thing of you being more aware of the mistakes than you are of other people's, of your own mistakes than you are of other people's?
Sort of doesn't matter in a way. I know what you're saying. In a show like that where the guitar is so integral, and it'd be silly, but then you'd be. I mean, I was going out every night getting plugged, but only because everyone else was.
Yeah.
But well, not only because there's nothing else to fucking do in Blackpool.
Brilliant.
There was a kind of social element to it, and there was a kind of understanding about what it really was in many ways. And it was, but I will say this: it is a brilliant show, and Joe McElderry was putting us all to shame. Now, I don't know if our listeners know who Joe McElderry is. He won X Factor. He is he is one of those guys who he's done this sort of. I have never worked with anyone. I don't know what to say about Joe, but I've never worked with him who we've been out till like 6 a.m. on a night out drinking, and then we'll turn up the next day and just fucking nail it again.
Terrifying.
It is absolutely. He's made of different things, and the thing with Joe is that he would do again in musical world, very let's just say patchy reputation, because he's not like sort of super legit jazz guy. He's a pop guy who won the X Factor, but I was inspired. Absolutely inspired by his consistency. Night after night, he was man of the match.
He has adamantium vocal cords, it would sound like. Just the Wolverine metal.
Yeah. He is made of the Wolverine skeleton, musically, because he was there, and when you're witnessing that, something interesting happens inside you. You're going, oh fucking hell, how many mistakes have I made over the last 3 weeks? Over the last 3 weeks, it needn't have been made.
You're there with the mistake clicker, racking them up. Yeah.
This guy goes on night after night. Okay, he's not Al Jarreau.
Sure.
But he goes out there night after night and slays it.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is an incredibly, a great skill to have in that kind of environment. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of these jazz guys in general. You listen to Chris Potter, their consistency is terrifying, unbelievably, terrifying. I certainly don't have anywhere near that consistency. And I think that's a good goal to have.
No, you guys that I look at guitar wise, because you do the sort of live, just off the cuff playing on the guitar out, and I go, Jesus, that guy's consistency is good. You just don't make mistakes like I do, which are embarrassing mistakes.
Well, I only put myself in environment. Well, this is sort of true. This kind of brings it back around to what we talked about at the beginning. The environments that you hear me in, and the environments I'm most comfortable in, I would make a lot of mistakes if you stuck me on that gig that you did. For sure. And I've done big band gigs, and this is one of the, I won't tell the story because I've told it before so many times on the Guitar Hour, but the Nijo gig that I did is one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my entire life. I would have quite happily curled up into a ball and buried myself into the ground and never ever wished to be released after that gig. But it's just one of those things. I'm very comfortable in certain scenarios, especially like we talked about before. I'm extremely comfortable weirdly playing in front of other guitar players. I have no, I would quite happily play in front of Kurt Rosenwinkel and have no issues about it, even though I know that he would look at me and go, oh God, a mere mortal, oh dear.
Yeah, but see, I would as well, because we're in non-overlapping areas, I think.
Well, okay, so yeah, but I would play quite happily in front of whoever.
Greg Howe. You've done Greg.
Well, I've played with Greg Howe, so that
I know exactly. You roasted him, I think.
Snapped a string. That was hilarious.
No, but you really did. I mean, Greg Howe's never going to listen to this, is he? So, but I
he might do. We can. We do know each other, but never mind.
Yeah, no, he might do. But the thing I will say is, Greg, if you're listening, the Jumpstart track. That was and you changed my life with that. So thank you.
Same here. Thank you very much, Greg.
Yes, that's it. Okay, let's do Pat now. Pat, if you're listening,
this could take a while.
Yeah, John Schofield, if you're listening, I've compositionally been inspired by Protocol to no end.
So I'm going to say, Tim Miller, I'm sorry I stole all your licks.
I'm going to say, Tim Miller, I saw you live with Yannick Guzdala and Terry Lynn Carrington at Berkeley, and I almost fell asleep.
Oh dear!
It was amazing, but I was hungover.
Okay, so there's a reason.
So I'd have loved a lesson, but I was so hungover.
Absolutely. So should we finish with a question then? Should we do one more? Because there's but let's pick a good one. You pick a good one.
Let's do. No. Do you know what? We should do quick fire.
Okay, let's do quick fire. Yeah, I promise I'll do quick fire.
Now, you know what? And I'm just going to ask you.
Okay.
So we've done Brett. Okay, so now we're going to do this one. Yaha Valila. I have no idea how to say that. Sorry, I butchered your name, sir. Oh no, I've missed one. No, we've done that sort of.
Yeah, we did the fourth one.
Yeah. Question about practicing. What is important when sitting and playing? Is it good?
Okay, so
this is the most important thing.
I've been suffering with horrific back pain recently. So good posture is incredibly important. So when sitting and playing, just make sure that your back is in good shape. Stand up every 15 minutes, walk around, stop playing, and then come back and do it. Whether you use a footstool or not is entirely up to you. I tend to, like when I'm doing the lick library stuff, because I'm filming for a long time, I'll stick one foot on top of the other, and that works for me. Or they have footstools there. The key point here is posture is massively important. Do not damage yourself like I'd have. Yes, so quick fire. Yes, next one.
I can't help but think you deserve all the pain you get. Next question. Just on that, football and golf about once a week.
Yeah. So anything like that, swimming. I mean, I don't do any of that. Yoga's very good. Pilates, all that stuff.
But I mean, because I've been there. I've sort of been in a position where I've just been playing all the time, and I find that those two things help me just sort of
interesting
develop certain muscle alignment. This is something I can't talk about. I have no expertise in that area.
You've obviously never seen me kick a ball,
dude. you know, if Nam happens, if Nam happens,
five-a-side football teams.
Okay, right. So who would you pick in your five-a-side? So I would get Scott Henderson up front.
Oh Jesus! How do I compete with Scott Henderson? Okay, I want Yingvi on my side. Imagine those imagine those pointy boots coming into contact with your shin. You'd take everyone down within seconds. It would be epic. I'm going to go as far as say I only need Yngve on my team. That's it.
All right, okay.
I don't even need a keeper.
2 on 2 on in goal. I'm getting Dennis Chambers because I think he's got the concentration level for it.
I want Anthony Jackson.
Okay, so you've gone that way. I didn't mean like that.
No, but you know where I'm going. Anyway.
Yeah, no, okay. Let's call those Jets.
Dear. Move on to another question, quick.
Okay, so how did you develop your to work? So Luke Lewis.
So we sort of mentioned this sort of fairly briefly earlier on. For me, it's taken a lot of work. It's certainly not natural, and I used to work on it a huge amount. What I find is if I do work on my ear, which I try to do fairly regularly, I do it most by playing completely random chord sequences into Cubase or Logic and coming back to them 3 hours later and then trying to play over them repeatedly. Because I find that I am trying to develop a reactionary ear, so that I can react to hearing things very quickly. And I feel like I've developed a pretty good ear for hearing a chord and being able to play over it very, very quickly. But what I've not done so much of is like, you know, if you play me, there's certain quite a lot of chord types I can recognize, but if you play me a chord progression, I can't necessarily play it straight back to you, whereas someone like Martin is very good in that area. You know, he's very good at recognizing. He can hear a standard and play quickly, which I'm not so good at. Not a strength particularly.
That's interesting. I mean, it's very humbling for you to. Oh, come on, Jake, use your brain. Well, let's move on just quickly. Okay, so we get another question, Felipe. When we listen to music, we can feel anger, sadness, happiness, anticipation, tension, relief. Whilst improvising, do you feel the moment when you're playing? I think this is a really fascinating question, actually.
Actually, this could take up hours into itself, but I'm going to answer the question by saying not to the same extent by any stretch, because my brain is engaged far more in the moment than it is, you know, I'm not necessarily, especially if you're playing over complex chord changes, which is kind of my kind of obsession, if you like. You are not necessarily engaged on the same level emotionally as you are when you are listening to something. You're not going on the same kind of journey as far as my playing goes. There are people who will, but actively improvising is a very different feeling for me to actively listening. Both are very rewarding, but I find actively improvising far more rewarding from a personal perspective than actively listening. Just because there's two things going on at the same time, and it's very rewarding making that musical process work for you. But I would say yes, but nowhere near to the same extent.
I will say that I invest a lot in what it's not really about emotions. I just invest a lot about meaning. I want things to mean something.
Yeah. I've heard you say this before, and I totally agree, but that possibly is something that is not massively intuitive to me. So I tend to, because I approach things from a very cerebral point of view. And obviously you have to when you improvise, and I'm sure you do as well, but that can take over a little bit. And the emotional and kind of, I'm not even sure what that means in music because it's quite sort of intangible, but you know, so if you describe those things, anger, sadness, happiness, anticipation, tension, and relief, the things that really make the most sense to me from an improvisational perspective there are tension and relief, for obvious reasons musically. But the thing is, unlike listening, I know how to create tension and relief when I'm improvising, or release when I'm improvising. So I know devices that I now know as part of my vocabulary that I can use to create those things. So like the other day, I was playing over Little Wing. And for instance, I know that if I approach each chord by its 5, by a diminished chord, a semitone lower than the root notes, and I approach each of those and I actually play the harmony. So for instance, with Little Wing, if I get a little bit more specific, if I'm playing, the first chord is E minor 7 or E minor 9, the way I play it. If I'm playing some kind of Dorian thing, then when I go to the G, if I approach it via its 5 D7, and then if I, approach that by something kind of altered or diminished scale harmony based, I can create tension within the listener because there's a harmonic device in use. That's the way my brain works when I'm improvising. I don't necessarily create.
We are very different
responses. Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of figured that
we are very different now. We're very different there. I don't think either of us are. Well, I don't think there's a difference in value to what we're saying. But
yeah.
I just thought there's a massive difference in approach there.
Yeah.
My thing is Little Wing. For me, it's a kind of E minor exploration up until it's not.
You see, that's really interesting, because for me, all I want to do with Little Wing is add harmony. And I get a real kick out of adding harmony to Little Wing. Or for instance, doing things like, so on the F major, knowing that chord can be expanded by treating it like a Lydian dominant as opposed to just a straight F major, that gives me a kick. I enjoy being able to play either the choice of being able to pick either the flat 7 or the natural 7, or go for the sharp 4 and then play a G major triad over that. These are the kind of things that go through my head when I'm improvising, because I'm choosing certain sounds because I've either heard them or because I know that is going to create a sound that gives me a bit of a kick. So I'm still getting off on it in the same way. There's still emotional responses, but I'm kind of choosing to switch certain things on and off. So it's not quite it's more cerebral than it is emotional, if that makes sense, which might point people, I don't know, but it's kind of the way my musical experience works.
Well, you know what, like that's the thing, is that's you don't think it's emotional, but it generates an emotional response in the listener.
Yeah,
for certain. And that's always been one of those things where, Boulez, for example, is totally removed from the emotional content of his music.
Right.
And you can listen to Boulez and be transported by it in a way. It doesn't. I think you don't have to say, I want to bloody cry, because if you want to make people cry, then you're a bully. In many ways.
Yeah, no, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, interesting.
What you want to do is you want to be honest about what the music in your head is, and put that across as honestly as you can. And that's been the more sort of successful things that I've ever done, is to kind of go, what's natural, what's kind of happening, what's the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And it's one of those things where the way that you approach music is very unique to you, and then the way but even though it's unique to you, it's not yours. So if you play a certain thing, and you, like, for instance, if I take that example I mentioned earlier on, playing a G major triad over the F the F major in Little Wing, and then going for the flat 7, I know that creates a certain sound, so I choose to play it. But the person who's listening hasn't known that I've picked to play that for that reason, and they get a certain emotional response for it that I have absolutely no control over.
There's an intentionality there, isn't there?
There is absolutely. But the end result is very unique to the person who's listening.
You're doing like a bit of a magic trick there. I think you're sort of presenting something that they weren't expecting, and I think what I do is different, which is actually more often less good, which is I'm going this is but an F thing has happened. That's how it feels in my brain.
You've dropped an F bomb.
Yeah, I've literally dropped an F bomb. Thank you.
No, it's interesting. I mean, the approach is the two approaches are very different, but you can't do anything but approach music the way that, this is a stupid statement to make, but it's true. You can't do anything but approach music the way that you approach it. I mean, if someone says to me, "Oh, you're not emotional enough and you're playing, you need to close your brain off and start playing more from the heart," that doesn't actually mean anything to me, because I don't understand A, what that means, and B, how to do it. I just play the way I play, and I can't do anything else.
Those people who say that don't understand what it is to make something.
No, absolutely.
They don't understand what it that is the definition of ignorance. When someone starts telling you what you should be doing artistically, that is one of the most unbelievably ignorant things that someone should say.
Well, it's going to be a very short conversation with me, particularly. I'm just not interested in it. Because it means nothing to me. You telling me how to play the guitar, or well, not even that, but how to play music in general and how to interpret music from my own internal monologue is just useless information to me, because I can't do anything but what I actually do. So it means nothing.
That's it.
Unless you're giving me advice which is kind of tangible advice, which would be like, okay, well, work on your phrasing or work on your time feel. But if you're saying play from the heart more, that means nothing to me. I can't interpret that as a piece of. That's like when you work with a singer and she says, "Well, can you make it a bit more purple?" And you go, "Well, I'll try, but I had green in mind, so it's kind of tricky."
Well, let's go to Stravinsky, because I think he's one of the most sort of fascinating characters in musical history. Let's go to Stravinsky and say, "Look, Igor, that Rite of Spring was good, but it didn't make me cry."
Oh dear, you didn't bully me enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it made a fair few people cry, but
it makes me cry whenever I start thinking about it properly, because it is one of those pieces where you go, "Holy shit, how did that happen?"
Well, exactly. That's the looking up at the stars moment for sure. But
yeah,
certainly.
Let's do this. It's gone well over time. I could happily do this for hours and hours, but
well, we always do this with the guitar. We end up going over for like well over time, and I have to kind of put an end to it.
This is a kind of a far more sort of casual nonsense format.
I thoroughly enjoyed this, mate. It's been really fun.
I'm really glad, sir. I've also enjoyed it. I think it's mainly for me, all this. I just
totally selfish.
I like doing it. I just want to sort of I wonder it'd be cool to chat with Tom. Let's do that. Anyway, let's look at the other questions. There's a question here which is I'm going to sort of meld them into one.
Okay.
And it's going to be very difficult to do succinctly, but let's see if let's call that a day. There's the question, I suppose, this is from Stelios.
Very good friend of mine.
Is do you think companies are aware of option paralysis in their products?
Okay, I don't think they are actually. No. Go on.
Go on. Sorry.
No, I was going to say. I'm going to let you answer. So you go for it.
Sorry. You are far more experienced in this than I am, but I'm going to ham-fistedly chuck in my ignorant opinion, which is I don't actually think they are. I think that good companies are, and I think that's why they're good and that's why they're successful. But I will say that I think there really needs to be set up that is made up of industry professionals, companies who do certain things, and then players. So like just people who you can come to, not even as a kind of uber financial thing, but just if you're going to make that bit of gear, please make it with an expression pedal. It's like if what really matters to people, and I think that could make the world a better place in a small way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one to answer because you see a proliferation. Oh God,
you got it right the first time.
Yeah, I don't know why I tried again. Proliferation. I don't know what's going on there. Can't wrap my chops around that word. Of gear companies, or gear these days, where the companies are basically out-speccing each other, and it's kind of I don't know. You see it with a lot of especially amp modeling products these days, where we've got 512 different amplifiers, and then the next one comes out, well, we've got 756 different amplifier models. You know, in actual fact, what happens is I think these companies are basically they're in the game of selling products, obviously, but they don't realize that most customers will use probably, oh God, I mean, not even probably a 50th of what that product does, if not less. I mean, for instance, the Axe-Fx is absolutely incredible, as you know, and I use 3 amp models on there. I'm delighted those 3 amp models are on there, but I very rarely use 95% of what that product does. And option paralysis is a big problem for a lot of guys. You know, they spend more time tweaking than they do playing, and I think that's what you've got to try and avoid. And it's interesting because Stelios is also saying that there seems to be a kind of new breed of products coming out that are kind of simpler than they used to be, and I think that's going to see a big upsurge in its popularity over the next couple of years, where we go back to very simple products that do just a couple of different features. And I also think we're going to see a big move back to pedal boards again from the majority of players.
Really?
Yeah, because there is such an enormous option of pedals out these days. You know, I just think that, you know, the options available are so huge, and I think people are going to find a sound that they like and stick with it. Because the options paralysis thing is just, I think it's a real deal for people. I think they struggle to actually kind of utilize all of the sounds on a product. I mean, I can't think of the last product I bought that had say 50 different amp models on it and I actually used everything. There's tons of features on all sorts of products I own that I don't actually have never heard the effects or amp models on. So it's kind of an interesting one. I don't think, by the way, having those options on board is a bad thing. I think it's an excellent thing for the consumer. Yeah. I think it's a phenomenal thing. But there is definitely a marketplace. And for me personally, I would rather have them than not have them. But there is a market there for people who just want simple, like maybe an amp modeler that does 5 different models, 5 different classic things.
That's kind of what the amplifier does.
Yeah, there you go. And look how simple it is visually to use as well.
It is uber simple, and I guess that kind of suits me down to the ground. But I just want to go back with you on. I kind of half disagree. I have been looking at the fractal thing. Is that a thing?
Which one? The floor unit?
Yeah, the floor unit, not the amp modeling unit.
Oh, the FX8, the effects one.
Yeah, what I want is to have one button patch change functionality. That's something that has come big into my psyche now. Yep. Daniel at the Gig Rig does the best thing in the world.
One of the nicest men on the planet.
Now he does the best thing in the world, right? Let's put that out there. Now I don't know Daniel. I've not contacted Daniel.
He's a wonderful human being.
No, the thing with the G2, right? Even if I contact Daniel and say, Daniel, I love you and I want to, but I want to. Well, that's actually, once I've done that, it doesn't make sense to the rest of my rig.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to then go and outlay maybe another $2,000 on pedals to make it work.
Easily. I mean, a pedal board can set you back $4,000 to $5,000 easily.
Which is why I'm now, and I'm not actually a big fractal fan in a weird way. I don't know what it is.
I am.
I know you are, but like I am a big fractal fan. I've used their product. I think it's nice, but it's aesthetics.
Okay.
It's and you know what? I play Victory amps. You know this, and Victory guys.
Amps, yeah.
I have a big problem with their aesthetics.
Oh, interesting.
But that's just beside the point. The sound quality is that good that I don't care.
Right.
It's like the Kemper kind of get it right for me.
Star Trek.
But a little bit toast. Not the toaster, but the rack. It's kind of aesthetically it does the right thing. But fractal for me looks like a scary bit of rack unit.
Here is where line 6 with the Helix are really, for my money, nailing things, because I've heard the demos of one. Forget what it sounds like. They have made that rack unit look like something that Bose designed in 2150. It looks
Yes,
incredible, absolutely incredible.
Do you know what? Like, I mean, again, like let's just forget. I love Victory amps. I love the Atomic amp. You know, I love that stuff. But for my professional life, players need things, and the thing is, the best companies know this. I am leaning so heavily towards the Helix in terms of what I want for my floorboard, and not even for the amp modeling. Their pedal board modeling seems pretty legit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find a lot of guitar players going down that route because, well, for two reasons. First of all, it's obviously very fully featured and affordable, although I would argue that so is the AX8. And I'm not arguing this from the point of view of being a Fractal endorsee or artist or whatever. It is very, very affordable. It's about around the same price as the Helix. But what Line 6 are doing very nicely is a beautiful display. Very, like, you mention touchscreen to anybody. It's not a touchscreen, but you just touch the top of the pedals and they're automatically selected.
Oh, the touch kind of details.
I mean, yeah, they're touch sensitive. Guitar players are just like anybody else who's into gear. You are very into visual things. I mean, you've just bought a guitar with a flamed maple top. Now, you already have a Strat. In fact, you have 2 Strats. Is that right, or more?
Tom, I have a lot of Strats. I don't know.
I remember a blue one and a red one.
Those 2 are the kind of main ones, and they're clones of each other.
Yeah.
And they both use WD necks, incidentally, who are very cool.
So you have a lot of Strats. You know, we'll leave it at that. But visually,
thank you for getting.
You are very.
I was about to ramble on about.
No, I would be very interested, but I fear if we start going down that route, we'll start.
Yeah, you did fantastically well for stopping me. Actually.
It will be another hour and a half on me and you ranting about, you know, different guitars that we've got, which will be fine with me. But the thing is, we're all very interested in the way things look. You know, also, you know, I'm thinking of bits of gear. Part of the purchasing process is the way they look, and I think companies are becoming more aware of this now. We kind of veered off options paralysis, but you know, the visual aspect of things is highly important. You know, we've seen it in all sorts of manufacturing over the years. So you look at TV design, the thinner the TV is, the better, the more interesting the stand. You know, how thick is the bevel around the TV, so on and so forth. You know, all of these things. Hi-fi gear, the more impressive it looks, the weirder the speakers look, so on and so forth. Guitarists are catching up with this now. We've been doing it with guitars for years, but now pieces of hardware are starting to look more impressive. You only have to look at the Lionheart, you know, the Laney Lionheart, blue Tolex with a kind of really cool-looking grill cloth, white chicken head knobs, and a silver front panel. This thing looks amazing. So companies are getting more in on the act now of how their gear looks, and Line 6 have really nailed that with the Helix. I'll be honest. I think they've done a really good job.
I think so, and I think as well that they have. And bear in mind, neither of us have links to this company. I don't think.
Oh no, not anyway. At all. Not at all.
I think
I've never even. I've owned. I used to own a Line 6 pod years ago, but
I use
only Line 6 products I've ever owned.
I use a Line 6 M9 and a Line 6 pod for the Who gig, but I think I might give that to my dad because I think he's going to like it. I've got no use for it. But the Helix, man, I just think it's so sensible. It's so sensible, and the price point is about right. And I think the price point is about right for all the other products as well, actually, because they are. I think it comes in at about $1,050.
Yeah, 1,070. The AX8 is, now if you look at the US price, which is kind of a little bit tricky, it's $1,399.
Well, for me, that's one thing that
it's less. It's £903.
They make incredible stuff. Yeah, so it's not easy to buy a Fractal product. It's not easy to buy an Atomic product.
Well, of course,
because they're smaller companies.
There's import tax and VAT and all sorts of things. Yeah. On there. However, what I'm saying is that the two. It's a very interesting time at the moment for modeling units because there's like line 6 always existed in the kind of, you know, let's use it's a horrible term, but the budget realm. And now the two companies have done very interesting things, because Fractal brought their price point right down. They've effectively halved the price. You can only have one amp model, and certain of the effects you can only have one of, whereas on the Axe effects you can have multiple effects chains and so on and so forth. But that's not necessarily a problem for people. The Helix, they've ramped the price up significantly. It's going to be very interesting. There's now this new marketplace that didn't exist before. I'm very intrigued to see what happens. Very intrigued.
It's a fascinating time to be alive, my friend. It really is. It really is. I say that as in slightly tongue in cheek. I totally agree with what you're saying. I just, I'm so, oh man, I am so in love with gear, but in a very kind of, I have thought of very little apart from the Wampler Tumnus lately.
Oh, dude! I mean, I know
you've got one.
I've got one, and I took it to Spain. I did Guitar Retreat Spain recently, last week, and I took it over there, and it's pretty special. That pedal, it's phenomenal. I mean, my Dual Fusion is the love of my life. As far as gear goes, it's just ridiculous, and I've used it on everything I have done in the past 2-3 years. But the Tumnus is amazing. I mean, it can make, even a fairly fat sounding amplifier just sound 3D and kind of like, I mean, I never bought into the whole kind of clon thing, but this thing, it's pretty spectacular, especially for the money. And again, that is not me speaking as a Wampler artist with a signature pedal, because by saying that, I'm taking sales away from the Dual Fusion. I'm not meaning to at all. It's a phenomenal little pedal for the money and the size.
Right, and man to man, and not taking anything away whatsoever. I owned one for a period, and I loved it. I loved it, but I loved the Euphoria side. So
95% of the time,
side.
Yeah, 95% of the time. 95% of the time, I use the channel 1, which is the Euphoria side, and then I use the other one as a higher gain sound. What I tend to find is, because that's essentially the way I used to use the two pedals. So I would use the Euphoria primarily, what was called the Ecstasy at the time, and then stack the Paisley on top for a gain boost. Which effectively means that what's interesting about that is you've got the Euphoria for your main sound, and then whatever's second in the chain, which in this case is effectively the Paisley drive side or the modern side, is what is your final tone quality. So my general sound, and I find this is more than enough gain, is channel 1. When I need to kick it up a notch, I actually use channel 2 and boost it with channel 1. So channel 2 is better for me for high gain stuff. But I don't use a great deal of gain most of the time, so channel 1 works really well. I just find, and again, this is me talking, I mean, of course I'm happy with that pedal because I had a kind of hand in designing it, but not designing it, but aiding the tonal qualities of it, because obviously Brian designed it completely. It's just so amp-like. It's ridiculously amp-like. So I absolutely adore it.
It really is. It really is. And you know what I was most impressed with it, and I'm kind of kicking myself now. Because these things come in and out of the door when you're sort of a consumer.
Yeah.
The thing that I found that was genius about it, that I realized now that I didn't quite realize then, was the input output thing.
Yeah.
With use them as two individual pedals in a looping.
Well, here's a crazy thing. So here's an absolutely mental thing. I recently did a demo of the Roland, or the Boss ES8 switching system. Now, you could do this with Daniel's stuff as well, the G2. You can change the order of the loops. So with one pedal, the Dual Fusion, it allows you, because of the way the input and output works, you can have channel 1 going as channel 2, channel 1 on its own, channel 2 on its own, channel 2 going into channel 1, channel 1 going into a phaser, and then going into a delay, and then going into channel 2, channel 1 going into a phaser and delay, and then in parallel having channel 2. It's insane the number of different routing systems you can have when you combine the ES8 with the Dual Fusion. It's mental. I mean, just crazy. Unbelievable.
Yeah, mind blown, mate. Mind blown. I think that's probably now that I can no longer speak.
On that bombshell, as Jeremy Clarkson would say.
By the situation, I think we should maybe end it here. And,
absolutely, that's nearly 3 hours of chat, dude.
It's mad. And maybe we should do it again later, and maybe we should bring in some other people. Maybe get Martin or Levi. I really wanted to talk to you about some of Levi's blogs because they're amazing, but we just didn't get around to it.
We'll save it for next time.
Yeah, save it for next time. Maybe that's it. I'm again like, so that these things aren't going to be regular because I'll be away over Christmas basically, and I was away for. But when they happen, I'm hoping that people are still interested. So I'm hoping to do one maybe in the next 2 weeks, and we'll see how we go from there. But thank you so much, Tom.
Fun. Absolutely, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Absolutely, I've laughed maybe too much with too many people.
Oh, brilliant. Okay,
so, let's call that. Thanks, guys, for joining us and for enjoying and enduring the conversation.
Yes, thank you so much, guys.
For my part. Really, really appreciate your questions and your interaction. I think it all makes it part of something I'm quite passionate about, which is trying to sort of create a more transparent and open community.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you're doing a great job. It's brilliant. So
you're the one. You're the one blazing the bloody trail, sir, with the guitar and stuff. So I'm a mere imitator.
Well, which we have to get you on as well. So we'll return the favor and get you on the guitar at some point.
No excuse me. I'm just going to drive up to Leeds.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to drive up to Leeds and just do it because I want to do it.
Yeah, we'll take you to one of the famous Bradford curry houses.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, man.
Marvelous.
Hey, all right, I really enjoyed it. Take care. Nice one, buddy.
See you later,
bye-bye.
guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.